So when we were mixing The Extinction of Benevolence, it all fell on Frank. Frank was living in Maryland at that time, so he was gone. He wasn't around. Billy was working. Anthony was not paying attention. Brian had to work. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm with the producer, and we're mixing it, and we're sitting at a control board, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, like I can sense somebody watching me.
Yeah.
I turn around, and it's Eric B. And he goes, "Yo, bro, that shit's deep."
Greetings, friends. Welcome to episode 205 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, my good friend Chris Pervelis of Internal Bleeding is back on the podcast, making his long overdue return to Mean Street Studios. He and I spoke all about the early days of the band. We spoke about what the future holds for Internal Bleeding. We spoke about his brand new website, themetaljentleman.com, and much, much more. It was a blast having him on the first time. This time was absolutely no exception, and it's going to be coming your way very shortly. But before we get to that, Cariosis are a blackened death metal band hailing from the Chicagoland area. They've been around since 2014. Their debut record, Will Until Beauty, is released on the 12th of January 2024. I love it. I believe you guys are going to love it too, and that is why I present to you now, for your listening pleasure, Cariosis with Apollo's Lament. That was a track called Apollo's Lament. It's by a band called Cariosis, and it's off their forthcoming debut full-length, Will Until Beauty. It gets released on the 12th of January, 2024, independently, which I frankly think is a bit of a disgrace, but that doesn't matter, because you can head over to their Bandcamp and you can buy yourself some music or some merchandise. Just let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. My friends, if you're new to this podcast and you enjoy what you've heard so far, you want to hear more every Tuesday free of charge, then make sure that you grab a baseball bat and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and you can, of course, head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store, pick yourself out a t-shirt or a hoodie or whatever else catches your fancy, safe in the knowledge that whatever profits I make on there gets plowed straight back into the show. Also, make sure that you are following my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. As you know, every Monday we kick you off with another episode of Horrorwolf 666 presented by the inimitable Brandon Legion. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings you another installment of Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday with Necromaniacs alongside his co-hosts Sheriff Mike Scandado and Professor Jeff Kashid. Big thanks and a congratulations to them for reaching their episode 200 milestone. I said thanks. I actually should say thanks because they have presented us with 200 episodes worth of high-quality entertainment. And if you like horror movies, it is definitely a show you want to check out. They dissect old and new titles, always super entertaining and always quite insightful, even though they didn't give The Wailing 5 out of 5 across the board. I have over time learned to forgive them for that, though. On a Thursday and a Sunday, the sinister minister himself, Carl Hikara, takes you on a journey down the darkest recesses of society and the occult. With his podcast, Soul Knocks, I was a guest on the most recent episode where we did a deep dive into the discography of the legendary Nevermore. I've spoken about that episode a couple of times now. Very excited for everybody to hear it. So if you haven't already done so, make sure that it's in your listening queue. And then finally, of course, our friend Cheyenne of the band Trivax presents an episode of Iblis Manifestations when you least expect it. He's not bound by routine, rules, regularity, but when his episode drops, you can be rest assured it's dropping gold. When I am done talking to Chris, make sure you don't go anywhere, because there is a national embarrassment that's been published recently called the Decibel Top 40 of 2024. I'm going to be picking through some of the selections. I will be casting most likely all kinds of shade at some of the misguided opinions presented on there. And then it's on to the meat and potatoes of my weekly news rant. We'll be talking about some new music. We'll be going through some of the latest metal news headlines. I read them so you don't have to waste your time doing so. So make sure you stick around for that. But right now, sit back and enjoy as I welcome back to the show my good friend Chris Pervelis of Internal Bleeding. A while back where a guy sent me a message that he had seen on Reddit, and some dude was posting this thing about being very confused about the fact that I mentioned during a interview with John from Black Braid that I thought that Randy Blythe was a great lyricist, but I didn't necessarily like him as a person. And so he had interpreted that as, I hate Randy Blythe as a human being, and the next conclusion he drew from that is he probably hates him because he's a member, or because him being me is a member of the far right, judging by how he looks. I was like, Jesus. So I've gone from I don't necessarily like the dude to I hate him as a human being, and it's because I'm a member of the far right. People are out of their fucking minds.
I'm still dealing with fallout from the fucking Onward to Mecca album. What is that, 2004? And I'm still dealing. I'm still dealing with some. I still see people complain and say stuff about my band that I'm like, my jaw just hits the floor, and I'm like, that is the most uninformed opinion I have ever seen in my life, you know.
But that was like I remember when that album came out, and I had always interpreted that as, you guys are a New York band, you know, you were probably at least, I don't know whether Bill or whether anybody else was directly impacted by 9/11, but I mean,
Bill was there pulling bodies out of the rubble.
Yeah.
Okay, and my girlfriend at the time worked in one of the towers. She got out, but I didn't hear from her for 5 days because there were no phones, there was nothing.
Jesus.
Right? And so and also on top of that, at that time I was partner in an advertising agency, and we were very, very successful, and I thought my life was set, and literally 3 of our biggest clients vaporized. Everybody I knew, I lost somebody, so that album was a giant scream, like a giant primal raging scream, and like, I'm a working class New York guy. We play eye for eye. So, I mean, there is no, it's very black and white when you're like my heart is blue collar, and when you're a blue collar New York guy, you cross me no matter what, or you hurt one of my friends no matter what, vengeance is coming.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of whole thing. It was a giant rage of anger. We had lost so many people, and Bill would sit and tell us stories that would make you sick. And when you hear that, and then it's just like, and I've got no room for moral equivalence or any kind of bullshit like that. You fuck with my friends, you fuck with ones I love, and I'm coming after you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the irony of you guys getting given stick about that. I mean, Biohazard put out "Kill or Be Killed," which was, I mean, that was really on the nose, and it effectively conveying the exact same sentiment that you just conveyed. And there were a lot of New York bands that kind of took that very defiant, like almost sort of aggressive stance after that. Like it
was very cathartic to do that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. It's like
healing.
100%. That's exactly what I was about to say. It's like, that's how you dealt with what happened. That's how you try to make sense of it. It's like, okay, how do we resist this? You're not necessarily literally, telling people to go out and commit hate crimes, but what you're saying is something happened that directly impacted people that I know, that I love, that I care about, that impacted my city, and you guys were one of several bands that took that position.
And this is what's going on in my head. And we're always, lyrically speaking, we're always, we're always honest with our fans, and so they got the unvarnished, this is what's in our brains right now. It doesn't even mean it's right or it's wrong. This is what's spilling out of my brain. Jerry and I worked on a lot of those lyrics, and it flowed very well because that was what was in our brains most of it. Not every song is about 9/11. I mean, there's a song about the Chosen Reservoir in there. There's a song about my ex-girlfriend in there. There's other songs, but people focus on the album cover and some of the other songs, and I get it. I get people being upset, but we were upset for real reasons.
Yeah. And I think, again, people need to sometimes recognize that a record like that is a product of its time. It's a product of its time, and it's a product of the place where it was conceived. And as we've said, people were directly impacted who you knew. Naturally, it's a completely human response to turn around and go, "Fuck this! I'm going to write a record that, that kind of gets in the face of all of that."
Right.
It reminds me, it was about 10 years until you guys actually put out Imperium. Was it actually part of the fallout from Onward to Mecca?
No. So I left. So I technically left the band before Onward to Mecca came out, even though I wrote a lot of the album with Guy Marchais. But I had started my own business, and I couldn't do my own business, and I couldn't do the band at the same time. I just couldn't. I mean, trying to start a legit business is, if I'm sure anybody who's done it, who's listening, knows what kind of sacrifice it involves. It involves just pedal to the metal, and you have to sacrifice everything to get the business off the ground. And there was no room for the band. So I had left the band in Jerry's hands, and Jerry ran it, and they did a bunch of tours. And Century Media treated them well. And then honestly, I don't know what happened. I don't know why the band fell into inactivity or whatever, but I decided, with my wife's coaxing, believe it or not, because I would sit and watch videos of other bands playing and I'd be just depressed. And she's like, you got to get the band back together. Get IB rolling. And I'm like, all right. And then I was like, all right, maybe we'll just do a couple of shows. And then all of a sudden it steamrolled, and that caused a problem between me and Jerry, which I was in the wrong because I didn't even tell Jerry I was going to pick up the band and do it again.
Yeah.
So that caused some tension between me and Jerry, but I apologized to him, and I did make it clear that it was my fault, but it was, my baby. It was something I had to do. And, I'm glad I did it, because I think we're sitting in a position now that we haven't been in a long time. I mean, our shows are fucking packed, and our social media and all that stuff is through the roof. And like, we've done some amazing tours since we got, we're more active, and I think we're bigger than we ever were even in the early 90s.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible, it's an incredible thing, and it's incredibly gratifying. It's really gratifying, because I've always believed in what we did, and it's like people are starting to come around to it now again. They were impressed by it in the early 90s because nobody was really kind of doing what we were doing. Yeah. But now that you have this whole wave of people trying to discover where all this groove and slam came from, and a lot of people point to us, and it's doing wonders. Plus, we're doing a lot of touring with younger bands. We're purposely doing that because not only are the younger bands that we know awesome kids, and I'll call them kids because I can be their grandfathers half the time, Yeah. They're just like the guys in Sango Cinnabog. Those guys are awesome. The guys in Vomit Forth. I mean, they're Kane, all those guys. They're such sweethearts. They're so dedicated. They're not, I know some people slag off younger bands as whatever, fake and all that, but those guys are fucking true, and they're fucking putting their pedal to the metal and trying to do it. I've got a hell of a lot of respect for them.
You guys are landing on the right bills now as well, I think, to kind of get that increased exposure, because you had that show that you played with Terror and with Hatebreed. Great crowd to play in front of, playing the kind of music that you guys do, especially right. I would argue Terror. And then this metal and beer fest that you guys are signed up for next year in April. That is a serious lineup. I mean, you've got Biohazard, Deicide, Dying Fetus, Crowbar. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And then you had Mexico as well, which we were talking about right before I hit record. I saw that you posted something about how crazy that show was. I just have to get the skinny on what happened there. Like, what was it like? What were the crowds like?
Okay, so let me just first set it up, because this is a joke that runs within our band. Okay. Let me just explain this. So we always say whenever we have a show, the weather's going to suck. And 90% of the time it fucking rains or it snows or whatever. So we're going down to Mexico on Thursday, right? I'm looking at the weather. Wednesday, it's 89 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. Thursday through Sunday, it's going to be raining and 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So we get down to Mexico and it's fucking raining. And everybody down there is like, it never rains here.
I was just about to say, it's like, that's like it's the 5 days of rain that they get every year.
We brought it with us, man. We brought it with us. But it was outrageous. It was fucking awesome, man. Even with the constant rain, the fans so there were 3 stages, 2 of them really big, and they were kind of like outside, and then there was one like medium-sized stage that was inside I swear it was a cattle auction site.
Yeah.
I can't confirm it, but I think that's what it was. So we were lucky. We played there, and it was like fairly dry. But, you know, I sat out all of Saturday. I sat outside watching all the bands, you know, Cryptopsy and all those guys, and I got soaking wet, and I just hung out with all the fans, and they're just great. They're lunatics. People coming up and taking pictures. I don't know who's taking pictures with me and this and that, and these lunatics just sat out in the fucking rain and went nuts the whole time. And it was just, you know, none of us understood a word anybody was saying to us, you know, except for Steve, because Steve knows a little Spanish. I know a little Spanish, but, you know, when you get into a foreign country and then they start speaking the language and you know a little, but they're speaking and it's like,
Yeah. No, there's no way to keep up.
You know, and it was wild. It was just great. And everybody warned us that were like, oh, you know, it's going to be, there's cartel's going to be down there. You're going to get shot and blah, 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 blah. And when we arrived, I got a little concerned because I saw a military truck drive by, you know, with machine guns hanging out of it. But that was it. And then, you know, I walked the streets at night at 3:00 in the morning to get tacos. And they were the best tacos I've had in a long time. And everybody was super nice. And it was just a wonderful experience. So it's like you hear stuff and then you experience it and you're like, man, there's some serious cognitive dissonance going on. Because I heard I was going to get killed. You know, and here I am, everybody. I mean, the staff at the Mexico Metal Fest did such a good job of, and listen, we weren't one of the headlining bands or anything like that. And they treated us, if I had a question, somebody tried to answer it as fast as possible. If I needed something, food, something like, somebody tried to do something for me as fast. It was great. It was great. It was just, it was a great time. And we all as a band had a great time. We had a lot of fun together. We drank a hell of a lot of alcohol. I don't know what happened. I mean, I guess the promoters, I guess our management told the promoters that I drink whiskey, because most everybody had tequila, but every time I would go to my room or my back room, there'd be a bottle of whiskey. And I'm like, by the end of the 4 days, I had like 6 bottles of whiskey. I couldn't drink it all. Like that's how good this and wonderful the staff were. Like they kept me supplied in whiskey the whole 4 days I was down there. And technically they really only needed to take care of us on Saturday, because that's the day we played. Yeah. But we told them we were coming down early. We wanted to party and have a little vacation, and they helped us. They helped us do that, and it was great. It was just. Go ahead.
I only get exposure to the people of Mexico through work. I've never been to visit. It's definitely a bucket list destination for me. But I've said this on the podcast before. Some of the very, very best people that I've ever met in my entire life, professionally and frankly personally, are folks from Mexico. Like there's kind of a friendliness and lack of
openness.
Yeah, and openness. There's a moral backbone to those people that I just warm to. They they're my kind of people. So I was very curious when you were saying you guys are going to go to this festival, and I mean it's a serious festival. You had Mastodon, Lamb of God, Emperor. You had like real heavyweight bands there. But I was just, I was curious to know, what the audience would be like, how you guys would get treated as a band. I'm not surprised to hear that you had a blast.
Oh, it was great. And there were a lot of people there who never saw us. There was a big contingent of fans who wanted to see us. Yeah. But there were also a shitload of people who never saw us before. So that was great, because people were coming up to us after the show and, oh my God, in the broken English, I've never seen you guys before. Oh my God, this, that, just gushing over our performance, which I thought was, I don't think it was our greatest performance, but it was good. I mean, Ryan blew up his bass after like 2 songs or something like that. And, but whatever, it was just like, I'm still high from it.
But you guys play the kind of music though where you can, even if your performance isn't 100% Loctite, it's not like a band like I think like Cryptopsy where technically you have to be precise, otherwise the show sucks. You guys can bring a bunch of energy, and as long as the grooves are there and the vibe is right, it's a little bit like Biohazard where it's going to be a great show regardless.
Yeah.
Which is I think that's a cool place to be in as a touring musician.
Yeah, it's a cool place to be. And as much as I love, this is my personal philosophy, as much as I love Cryptopsy, and they were great. And it was awesome to see Flo, because I haven't seen Flo in like 15 years. So it was good to catch up with him. I love him. But, most people, I think, can't walk away from a Cryptopsy show and hum a riff.
No.
And this is my personal opinion. As much as I love Cryptopsy and a lot of tech death bands that I do love, I want to go to a concert. I want to walk away and be, especially a band like a band I've never seen before, maybe, and be like, God damn it, that one riff that went, and I can hum it. And I walk away and it sticks in my head. That's the kind of music I want to produce. It's not, listen, I'm not a musical genius. I'm not a technical expert. I never will be. I want to be, I never will be, because I'm a jazz freak and I wish I could play jazz, and I can't. I just can't. I try. I can't. I fail constantly, but I keep trying. But I want to write hooks and grooves and payoff riff after payoff riff after. It's, I can't stand when bands will just play and there's zero payoff anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I'm totally with you on that. I'm very big on the payoff, because if you can have 1,000,001 technically impressive riffs, but if you don't have that moment, like, let's take Internal Bleeding. Like one of my favorite Internal Bleeding moments is the breakdown for Focus. So where it like slows down and like the vocals are like, and then and then the like the real gnarly shit starts. If you don't have moments like that, or moments like the breakdown right before Sacrificial Suicide,
hell yeah,
any of those classics, then there's no point to it. Like it just becomes one big noise. And I've seen Cryptopsy live many times. I love the band.
So do I.
But they're a little like
they have some killer fucking payoff riffs though.
Yeah, no, they do.
They might not be like mosh or slam inducing, but they pay off in a different way where it grabs you by the neck and it's like, damn, that's sick. And it's just like a crazy tempo change or a crazy meter shift. That shit's cool, man. That's a hook too, But
my experience with that is like I have a better response to that when I hear that on the cans, or when I hear that on the hi-fi, than when I see that live. Like you raise a very good point there that I've said many times before. Like for a lot of death metal bands, especially, the ability to get over with an audience that doesn't know your music. If all you're going to be doing is playing like blasting songs, it's great, but don't expect people that don't know you to go away and go, man, I have to check that band out. If they don't know you,
really good sound guy.
Yeah, exactly. If they don't know you and there's nothing to really kind of stick with them after that show, if they've seen 5-6 other bands in during that night, you're just going to be another band to them. So that's why, like, a band like you guys, I can absolutely see how, especially getting exposure on some of these shows that you guys have been playing recently, it's not surprising that it feels like your star is very much back on the ascent.
Yeah. It feels real. It feels real good. It's been a lot of work. I mean, we went through a management shift, and that was a smart move, because our new management said to us, basically, you guys have a ton of potential and it's not being tapped because you're not doing the right thing. And I didn't know what that meant. And we had a lot of conversations with our management. Our manager is Mark Vieira, great guy. He also manages Vomit Forth.
Just so I know the context, when did this change happen?
Oh God, about 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
All right.
Okay. And we split with our past management. It was friendly. It was, nothing but needed to do something different. And Mark assessed everything, and he had been a fan of the band, and he said, "You're wasting your potential. Here's what we need to do." And he kind of rewrited the ship, so to speak, and said, "Here's what we're going to do." So he's the one who said, "We got to start going out with younger bands, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and we got to be smart about where you allocate your time." Because you're all getting older, you all have jobs, and what time you have is precious, and we can't waste it on things that aren't going to help you. So he's very, and I never looked at it that way. I was like, I'll try to just play any show ever,
Yeah.
But he focused us more, and it's been better and a lot less stress-free because we're not scrambling around trying to play 1 million and 2 million shows, and we're not scrambling around. We kind of made a pact that we're going to do everything we possibly can, never to have a fill-in. We do this as a band. We do it together as much. Sometimes we're going to need a fill-in. It's going to happen, but like I would never do a tour. I'm never going to do a complete tour with 2 different fill-in guitar players or whatever. Yeah. We're a band. We're going to go down as a band, and that's what we're trying to do. And I'm so much happier this way. So,
it's interesting what you mentioned as well about the fill-ins, because that's something that you clearly see as bands are getting older, and, there's more of a need for people to not be able to go on a 3-month tour, and then they get a guitarist to fill in, or they get a drummer to fill in. And I think all of that's fine. I bear no ill will towards people that do that, but
neither do I. No. That's
you look at it from the perspective of somebody who buys into a band, like the real diehard fans. They buy into the members and the personalities in that band.
100%, man.
And so I think you can sometimes end up feeling a bit shortchanged as a fan going to one of those shows, and then you've got a different vocalist or you've got 2 different guitarists. It just doesn't. It feels like you're seeing a cover band. You're not seeing the real deal necessarily.
Yeah, and unfortunately for my band, every one of us has a distinct personality, and I think it would be missed. Any guy who's not there, I think, would be missed by the fans. Yeah, because everybody's got a unique personality. I'm the very outgoing guy who dives off the stage and gets into the crowd. Chris McCarthy's the wrestling fan who talks shit constantly. Ryan's the fucking dumb anime loving lunatic. Who loves obscure porno grind, and yeah. and Kyle's just a lunatic. Like, so if any one of those got replaced, I think fans would miss it, and I don't want that anymore. I'm at the age where, like, I love the guys I'm with, and I want them to, it's not, I mean, sure, we can get somebody to fill in, and listen, we're going to have to do it. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, because I know for a fact it's going to happen this summer for something big we're doing, but it's not the same. We have such a good vibe together when we're together. And to me, at my age, family is like super important. And it's yes, the music's incredibly important, but it's also family shit to me. Yeah. This is family shit to me, it's important family shit to me. And I love those guys. And I'm in a good position where some of the younger guys I can mentor a little bit, not musically or anything like that, but like life advice and stuff like that. And it's good. I feel like a bit of a dad, and it's rewarding.
Well, the thing also is your perspective, I guess, on the band and on playing music will have changed and evolved so much over the course of. I mean, you guys have been going for over 3 decades now. Your debut record is going to be turning 30 in, I think, 2 years' time, if I'm not mistaken.
Jesus Christ, yes.
which is fucking crazy. I remember when I first heard Voracious Contempt, and this was probably a year or so after it came out. And it was just like nothing else that was coming out at the time. Like everything else was starting to move more towards the technical stuff. Everyone was trying to go faster. Kind of Vile by Cannibal Corpse, that sort of set the trend for that. Yeah, and everyone was trying to go more extreme. And here comes this band that has the extremity, but like the pervasive, element in the band is just groove. Like every single song has this filthy, just mean caveman groove to it. I just fucking loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, I always say it. You know what? And it pisses people off, but I always say it's a hip hop album.
Voracious contempt.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much hip hop in that fucking album. I love.
Yeah, I can hear that.
And that a lot of that comes from a lot of that writing comes from EPMD and Eric B and Rakim and as well as metal, of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of that just that groove and of course Black Sabbath. I'm just lucky to be in New York because it is the locus of groove. As far as metal is concerned, I think it's the locus of groove, and hardcore. I mean,
I just before I ask you another internal bleeding question, you shouldn't have mentioned Eric B and Rakim because you pushed me down a rabbit hole immediately because I'm a fucking huge fan.
Do I have a good story for you?
You're gonna have to share just to mention. Anyone that thinks they know anything about hip hop, if you have not listened to the album Follow the Leader, and in particular the song No Competition,
fuck yes,
that is exactly the way hip hop should sound. I mean, that is a masterclass that I like a lot of other hip hop bands like Gravedigger, Cypress Hill, tons of bands, tons of MCs, tons of rappers, but there is nothing in terms of just sheer flow, just like lyrical capability that comes close to No Competition. Like the song literally is like that to me is like the it's defined by its title, if that makes sense. Like there is no competition.
Yeah. Oh my God, the flow is just like Okay, so here's an Eric B and Rakim story that you're gonna love. So when we were mixing The Extinction of Benevolence, it all fell on Frank. Frank was living in Maryland at that time, so he was gone. He wasn't around. Billy was working. Anthony was not paying attention. Brian had to work. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm with the producer, and we're mixing it, and we're sitting at a control board, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, like I can sense somebody watching me.
Yeah.
I turn around and it's Eric B. And he goes, "Yo, bro, that shit's deep." And then he walked away. I shit my pants.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, Eric B said my shit was deep. I was like, made my whole fucking career, man.
Dude, I was about to say, where do you go from there?
Meeting Ghostface Killer at Knotfest. That was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, Ghostface Killer is fucking awesome as well.
Nicest fucking guy in the world.
Ghostface Killer was he part of Gravediggers? Because I know it was like a couple of dudes from Wu-Tang.
I don't remember.
The RZA was definitely in I don't
know if Ghostface was, but what a nice guy. And my bassist at the time, Jay Liff, followed Ghostface since Ghostface was like a teenager. So Jay was talking to Ghostface and said, "I saw you at the Franklin fucking VFW hall in Massapequa," and Ghostface was like, "Holy shit, you were at that show, white boy," It was what a nice guy, man. He took pictures with us, he hung out with us, he taught. What a great guy.
With those old hip hop shows, they kind of had almost, if you watch some of the old clips and stuff on YouTube, they almost had like a metal vibe to them. I mean, they didn't have guitars and stuff. They were using samples and things, but there was the thing that I love about like some of the best metal shows and some of the best hardcore shows is that feeling of anarchy, like that feeling of just like complete chaos.
Something's going to let loose.
Yeah, exactly. Something's going to pop off at any moment. You mentioning wrestling earlier. I mean, the reason why wrestling was so great when Monday Night Raw and when the Monday Night Wars were happening is because it always had that feeling like you never quite knew it was going to go on. Or if you watch an ECW show, I mean, you know, fuck knows what was going to go on there from one moment to the next. But I miss that in a lot of newer bands. It feels too controlled and it feels too buttoned down. It kind of misses a bit of that anarchy. And sometimes it's as simple as having doing some gang vocals on stage or having multiple people do vocals on stage. Even something like that will shift the dynamic on stage massively over just doing, you know, your standard set, your standard songs.
You know, I mean, it's funny you said that. You know, Chris McCarthy, our other guitarist and backing vocalist, he always says that we as an Internal Bleeding need to make music dangerous again.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. That's what we're trying to do. You know, that's why I jump into the crowd and try to get fucking things going. And that's why Chris says fucking real people up front, cowards in the back and shit like that, you know?
Yeah.
We want to make the music should be fucking dangerous. You know, when death metal, when I first started going to death metal shows in the early 90s, they were fucking dangerous.
Mm.
Or when I went to hardcore, like when I used to go see Black Flag in the 80s, those shows were fucking scary. That was like, you didn't know if you were going to walk out alive. Like, that's how it should be, you know?
Well, my friend Leorcifer, he told me something a while, like years back when he was doing one of my tattoos. We were talking about hardcore, and he was in New York around the time that Biohazard was getting up and going. He was like, if you went to a Biohazard show in 1989 or 1990, he says, like, you literally were fucking lucky to leave with your limbs completely intact.
100%
he said it was absolutely insane.
100% true.
But he loved it, and I love it. I've always loved those kinds of shows where you go to where something feels like it's a little bit sketchy. It's like you never know whether something's going to go horribly wrong or whether you're going to have the time of your life. Yeah,
there's an element of I love when there's like an element of danger.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And you know what? I gotta say, we went on tour with Deicide a couple of years ago. They still bring that element of danger.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
They still bring that a little, not like it used to be, and maybe that's because I'm jaded, and that's possible. But I still felt I used to watch them every night on tour, and I'll be like, damn, they're fucking. Some of Deicide shit is just really fucking dangerous sounding.
Oh yeah, you know? Yeah. But that's the thing, is the reason why I think their music is so effective is because, you know, kind of similar to what you guys do, they know when to throw something very simplistic in to make a song sound just nasty. You know, they know when a part on a song requires something technical or when a part of the song requires two notes. And it's oftentimes, in my experience, it's those 2-note moments or those 3-note riffs. That's the real nasty shit. Like, you think about Throes of Depravity on Pierced from Within. There's a bit like 1 minute into the song where the breakdown is like da 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 dun, dun, da da da.
Yeah. It's so good.
I remember seeing them play that live when Frank was still in the band, and I mean that is when you like feel, oh my god, this place is going to fucking turn into a complete riot.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because those are the kinds of riffs that tap into like a primal part of people. Like everyone can appreciate a technical riff, but it's the that's when it's like, okay, now the caveman is being woken up.
Sorry about that.
No sweat.
My Wi-Fi just all of a sudden just decides to go out.
No, don't worry. It happens.
Well, I'm working off my phone now, and it seems to be working. I'm sorry about that.
No problem, man. I live out in the countryside, so it mine drops from time to time as well. I actually thought it was mine at first, but I just did a speed test.
That was me, because I heard every child in my house scream because the Wi-Fi went out.
Yeah. I'm not quite there with my daughter yet, but so I do. she is starting to get a bit more device addicted now, and I'm having to pull back on it now. I thank fuck for Family. What's this? I think it's called Family Link or something that Google does. You can adjust the timing that they can be on a phone or on a laptop or something like that for. So,
oh, that's good. Yeah. We did that. We did that when they were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did that. We monitored that stuff when my kids were younger. Now they're older, so we kind of give them a free rein as long as they do well in school and that they're good human beings and that they can tell the difference between reality and TikTok. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's kind of cool. How old's your daughter?
She's 9.
Oh, okay. So I have a 16 and a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool because they keep you young because you have to be tapped into what's going on because you have to monitor them. So it's kind of a blessing in a way. It keeps you young. Look at it that way.
Yeah, I see it that way. For me, like the keeping you younger is manifest more in the sense that like I can show her stuff like this past weekend we watched Aliens and we watched Predator. I'm trying to keep her deliberately away from all of the bullshit that's coming out nowadays because it's just, firstly it's crap. Secondly, I don't like the heavy-handedness of the messaging in it. Like you should be enjoying the stuff that your dad grew up enjoying. So she's seen Alien, she's seen Predator, and she loves all that stuff, and she loves it a lot more than any of the modern stuff that
because it's because we sound like two old men, but but you know what because those movies. Okay, so the first Alien is my absolute favorite movie next to Casablanca. The first Alien is my absolute favorite movie ever. And it's because it's story driven. It's driven by dialogue. It's driven by. It doesn't have, like you said, there's no political messaging in it. There's no other. It's driven by a fucking story, and it's real craft. And now I think the craft of making movies has really declined.
Well, I think it's because movies are made by committee now. So, if you listen to someone like Adam Carolla, he talks about it quite a lot, but he'll say that if you have a script and you take it to a producer or you take it to a studio and they're interested in it, it's basically a bunch of investors that sit around a table and say, well, we need more of X in the movie, or we need less of this in the movie, or you're going to need to have a sidekick who meets the following demographic criteria. And it ends up changing every single thing that the person who originally conceived of the idea had in mind when they wrote it. And that's why we keep getting this watered down garbage. And once in a while, something interesting slips through the cracks. I really enjoyed The Killer, this new David Fincher movie that came out.
I'm gonna watch that tomorrow.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was absolutely sensational.
Okay,
I've not seen Killers of the Flower Moon yet, but hopefully Scorsese goes on living for a while because he seems to be able to have free reign on what he makes. But the vast majority of things that come out, it's either MCU, which I find incredibly boring, or it's just things that feel formulaic and like they were made to appease a diverse set of investors. Give me something like Alien, which I completely agree with you. It's incredibly clever storytelling. It did actually introduce something very pivotal from a, if you want to say cultural or even political. It did introduce something very, very pivotal, a credible, believable, absolutely fantastic female hero.
Yes.
And the thing that's so smart about how Alien does it is it does it through a sleight of hand, because it makes you think that she's not the main character in the story for at least half the film.
Yeah, you think,
and then
that
all of a sudden, right. Exactly. All of a sudden, it through sleight of hand, it sort of puts her in this position where now she has to, try and save the crew, and she has to step up. And that's partly to me what makes the movie so absolutely brilliant. It never kind of takes you along a linear path. You don't quite know what to expect. And it's not just because of how the alien is, or it's not like through big twists. It's through just incredibly clever and natural. There's like a real natural, almost quite a realistic way of writing. That it keeps its fantastical story, in a real, like, in grounded in reality. I'm if I'm mumbling and sounding like an imbecile now, you know what I mean.
Yeah, Jackie, I can talk about Alien forever because there's so many things in that movie. Like there's funny things in that movie, like just the acid dripping through the floors, and they're running around trying to stop the acid dripping through the floor, and how it you never really know what it is. It's constantly changing shape, and they never give you an exact picture of what this thing is, you know, and they just, it's just this slow burn, this painful slow. I don't think most younger people can't deal with the pacing.
Yeah.
Because it's not quick enough. But to me, that incredibly slow burn, it's just relentless and slow, and it steps up in the terrifying department. Yeah. The whole scene with Dallas in the air vents, in the air shafts, and the primitive computer's not working, and she's banging on it, and she's like, "Oh my God, get out of there!" And the music playing. To me, that is peak filmmaking. It is peak. I can watch that scene over and over again. Tom Skerritt acts that he's cool, he's collected, but you can tell he's scared shitless at the same time. Like the acting just is just incredible. Incredible, you know? And I feel that way. I feel that way when I watch I feel that same way when I watch the first few seasons of The Walking Dead.
Yeah, The Walking Dead to me was
the first couple of seasons. After that, it gets off the rails. But the first few seasons, you don't know who's going to get killed, what's going to happen. I thought it was great too. But
I thought they had a very good thing going with that show, and then around season 5, it kind of took a bit of a dive.
Yes,
and I thought to myself, okay,
100%.
I'm getting sick of this now. It's too much convenience logic. You know, one character, 15 minutes prior is taking out thousands of zombies with headshots. The next thing you know, he's emptying an entire clip, and he can't hit a single thing at point blank range.
Yeah.
Then they introduced Negan, and the way that they brought Negan into the show, I thought, okay, this is actually the way that they've set this up is really fucking cool. Like, it's very sinister. Like maybe the show's going to take a darker turn. You've got the scene where, I'm not going to give a spoiler alert because it's fucking ancient now, but Glenn gets the shit beaten out of him with a baseball bat, quite literally. I couldn't stand the Glenn character, so I was like, yes, he's gone, so I'm going to watch the show again. And then they just ruined that Negan arc so badly in season 8. That to me was, I was done. I was like, they
went off into too many tangents and just, and I guess you run out of gas. I don't know what it is. I mean, I find a lot of good stuff on the small screen, a lot of good shows on the small screen that have good writing. Yeah. But it always seems like if it carries on too long, they run out of gas, and it's like The Walking Dead turned into shit. Yeah.
It turned into a cartoon, and the worst thing that they did is they had this fantastic, incredibly well acted villain in Negan, and they turned him into a cartoon character. And it was right. You guys have taken the best opportunity you had to make this one of the very greatest of the great shows, and you've completely fucked it up.
Agree 100%. They should have kept him. They should have kept him as sinister and fucked up as the governor.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. 100%.
If they did that, because I the whole governor story arc I loved. Because he was one fucked up dude, but he was also like a deep character. Like you can see that he's struggling between how do I make a family survive? They flash back to his family and his daughter and all that. Just really good stuff. And then they just blew it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. If you want to watch a really cool zombie show. There's a South Korean show on Netflix called All of Us Are Dead. And it kind of, it starts off on day one of the outbreak. It's all these school kids that are trapped in like their in this classroom. And it's basically how they try and navigate their way out of the school. and that's the whole entire first season. They've only done the one season so far, but it's fucking fantastic.
Did you watch? Oh, go ahead.
There's a couple of moments that are really funny, but there's a lot of it that is super intense. It's South Korea, so there's very very different view on gore and violence to what you see in the States. It's really good. I absolutely loved it.
Did you like? Did you watch Squid Game? Did you like it?
Yeah, I did, and I absolutely loved it as well.
I thought it was very well done.
Yeah,
very well done.
No, I loved it. I thought the episode with the marbles was one of the most emotionally affecting things that I'd ever seen in my entire life. I said to my fiance when we were done, I was like, I sat there quiet for about 10 minutes. I said to her, I don't know what to say. I'm literally lost for words. I can't remember seeing something that has just like emotionally just given me a gut punch like what I've just watched.
I love, that is the magic of just good writing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm in the advertising business. Writing is like 80% of my business. Good writing is just, God, you have to just appreciate it, and when you can watch something that's not real, and like you said, you got an emotional gut punch, like that's incredible. To me, that's incredible. I can watch there's certain movies that'll make me like, they'll make me cry or they'll make me like upset. And I'm like, why am I getting upset? This is a fucking movie. And I'm like, because the writer knew what the fuck he was doing.
Yeah.
Or she was doing or whatever, and that's just whatever. We're not even.
Well, here's a question for you. What's the last movie that you cried in?
Last movie that made me cry. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Okay, so is it the last movie that I cried in when I was at home, or was that in the movie theater?
Either or. I'll tell you mine, and mine was at the theater.
Okay, go ahead.
The Banshees of Inisherin. Did you watch it?
No.
Fantastic. Colin Farrell, absolutely superb and very well deserving of his. I think he won an Oscar for that. But there's a scene where somebody's pet dies, and oh my God. I was literally like you're trying to fight the tears, and I do what men normally do when you're trying to stop from crying. You start clearing your throat like every 5 seconds. Like, I was like, the tears is just streaming down my cheeks. But if you're gonna watch that and you are in any way sensitive to animals dying, fuck, the way that they wrote and filmed and presented that particular pet passing away, holy shit, it's rough.
Oh man. I think so. In the movie theaters, I was in college at that time, and me and my roommate went to see Platoon, and when Willem Dafoe, that whole death scene when Willem Dafoe dies, that I had tears pouring down my face.
Yeah.
I just like,
for war movies, I remember seeing I watched 1917 at the theater as well, and it was the same thing. Like, credits started, I was just like, I need to go to the bathroom. I needed like 2 minutes to compose myself.
You know what? I wish they would make, and they don't do it anymore, but I wish they would make more. Like 1917 was absolutely incredible. I wish they would make more movies like 1917 and stuff. So maybe younger people can understand what the sacrifice that was paid for the world we live in now. And I'm not trying to get political, but you're talking about 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids, and then you got all these internet tough guys and all this stuff online, and I'm like, these fucking kids got up and ran right at a machine gun with no fucks given, and I wish there was more. I wish there were more movies like that. More. I love historical drama. Like even the movie Midway, it's dated now. The original Midway.
Yeah.
Okay. The original Midway movie from the 70s. like Midway was a huge turning point in World War II for
Midway was one, and a lot of people don't realize this. And I definitely watched the movie from the 70s because the new one is terrible. But I mean that is widely regarded as one of the most strategically brilliant victories in the history of the American Navy. It's literally why they started referring to certain classes of aircraft carrier in America as a Nimitz class carrier. It was named after Colonel or Corporal Chester Nimitz, Admiral Chester Nimitz. The guy was a fucking genius.
Not only that, but the intelligence officer who sent the fake message out about the water salinization plant, so they can confirm that it was like, it's just fucking brilliant. These fucking guys are just, and then you get these 18-year-old people, 20-year-old people, 20,000 feet in the air and going, all right, yeah, let's just go face down right into this aircraft carrier and drop a bomb.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine being 20 years old and doing that.
Yeah.
And
no, dude, it's crazy. Have you seen the Peter Jackson documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old? About World War One?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that to me should be exactly for the reason that you just said. Now that should be compulsory viewing at school. You should watch that once a year at the very least. They need to show that to the kids, and there should be exam questions, everything about it. They need to understand the mindset of those men in that battlefield.
You know, it's funny. We're talking about this, and my son and I went to the car wash this afternoon, and we're talking. He's playing some game where he's an anti-aircraft gunner, and kamikazes are diving down on a ship, and he's manning a 50 caliber machine gun, and he's like, I was so terrified. I'm like, can you imagine what's like in real life when there's bullets flying at you, and you're not much older than you are now, and people are literally trying to kill you.
Yeah,
I'm like, you got to think about that. I know you said you were terrified, and that's only a video game. Can you imagine in real life what that must be like, and what these young kids were forced, were many of them volunteered to do? Like, to me it's mind blowing. I don't have those balls.
No, hell no. And when you watch They Shall Not Grow Old, they seem so casual about it as well. Like, especially when they talk about going over the top of the trench in that last charge, and they're like, yeah, well, the captain is standing there by you with his revolver, and he's telling you he's going to shoot you if you don't go over. And it's like, well, we just decided we're going to take our gun and just start running.
It's fucking crazy.
It's absolutely mind blowing. There is a new show coming out actually though, that I'm quite interested in seeing. It's called Masters of the Air. It's made by the same people that made Band of Brothers in the Pacific. That's going to be on Apple TV next year. But, it'll be like All Quiet on the Western Front. All Quiet on the Western Front came out on Netflix.
Did you like it?
Loved it.
Absolutely loved it too. Absolutely fantastic.
It
was more true to the book than the original movie, however many years ago.
Yeah.
Or at least the vibe was more true.
Yeah, you talk about an emotionally affecting movie. That scene in the fucking mud pit where where basically like keeps telling the guy to keep quiet while he's killing him. Holy fuck! It was like that just completely took my breath away.
Yeah,
it was done. It was so well shot and it felt so realistic. It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But back onto.
I know we took a little diversion, right?
Pressing matters. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the old days, because last time when you were on, I was saying we should talk a bit about some of the old school death metal stories, and just as we touched on how different Voracious Contempt was, you really were forging your own path, forging your own sound at that time. What gave you the idea to kind of go down that track and to mix in some of those hip hop elements and stuff like that, especially because you were doing it at a time and in a scene where, that kind of shit was completely and utterly taboo. I mean, there was for a long time, people nowadays don't realize it so much because nu metal has been and gone. There's been so many crossover bands, it doesn't really matter anymore. But in the early 90s, like early to mid 90s, if you were walking around, like if you turned up at a show and you had a Public Enemy t-shirt on, or you had a Cypress Hill t-shirt on, like you'd get some frowns. If you were going to see Suffocation and you had, you know, a rap t-shirt on, it would not go down well.
It would go down well in New York. Nobody would give a shit in New York.
Yeah, possibly. In a lot of other places, you would get I mean, rightly or wrongly, I've always been a fan of both, but you know, you would have gotten people giving you a lot of shit about it.
Oh yeah, sure. So our thought was kind of like, blast beats are cool, but they're just a tool to lead you to the payoff.
Yeah,
they're not the meat of the song. Like, we always used to say, fucking, there can be we have zero mindless grind, meaning anytime we go fast, it has to lead somewhere good. And even when we wrote fast parts, it had to be like this. It had to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. It had to be like that. It couldn't be like like a pinball machine.
Yeah.
Because even the groovy parts had to have you going like this, and then the payoff comes and you're already doing this, and then the payoff comes and you're like, your head just blows up.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And that was kind of our philosophy. We didn't want to waste time. We didn't want to waste time with all we used to call technical bullshit, you know? And that's how we looked at it. It's like, all right, let's write a technical part. No, fuck that. Why? It's fucking boring. I don't want to be inside a pinball machine, you know? So if we're going to write a fast part, it needs to be straightforward. It needs to be 4/4. It needs to be groovy, and it needs to be simple enough that you can hum it. You know, and so we stripped away. We tried to strip away all the complexity. You know, even though we liked the complexity, it's like, man, I fucking love Ripping Corpse. They're fucking great. I don't want to play it. You know, and that's kind of how we just kept stripping away stuff, and then it was just like, a lot of times Bill would come up with a beat, and then Anthony or me would write a riff to the beat. Bill would be like, you know, he'd come up with some kind of groovy fucking beat, and then Anthony would just start riffing, or I would start riffing, and then we'd hammer a riff together. You know, so it always, a lot of times it started from a percussive standpoint. You know,
which is very different to the way a lot of bands wrote then and right now, right? It's the guitarist comes up with the riffs, and then you know they will normally have like a drum track that they lay on it. They play the drum track to the drummer, and the drummer needs to come up with their own thing. But that's what you're describing is very much like old school hip hop way of writing music, where they would have the beat and the the sample, and then everything else starts coming together.
Right, like Chris McCarthy and I talk about this a lot together when we're writing stuff. We look at each other and we're like, well, you know, we're both failed drummers.
Yeah.
Because like you know, nowadays when we write, you know, Chris will say to me, I got this beat in my head. And so then I'll go on the computer and him and I'll figure out the beat, and I'll program the beat in the computer until it's exactly what Chris heard in his head. Hi-hat, everything. And then him and I start writing riffs to the beat. You know, and that's kind of that's I would say that's 85% of our process. I mean, some of the process is guitar driven. I'll wake up with a riff in my head and I'll put it down, and then I figure out the beat. But a lot of it is, I got this fucking beat, you know, like even when Bill was alive, Bill would call me with and leave me voice messages. I'm going to cry now. Bill would leave me with voice messages, just beats, and be like, "Yo, check this out. Okay, come up with something with that. Fuck you. Talk to you later." You know?
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of how we're always percussive driven. 90% of the time. Like I said, there's a good 10% where like I'll have a guitar riff in my head, and I'll say to myself, I know I can get a drum beat to that, but I love the riff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but a lot of the times it's the beat comes first.
How like what were some who were some of the first bands you guys were playing with? Maybe that's the best question to start with. And then how were the audiences responding to you guys going that different route to what the rest of the scene was doing at the time?
So that's a good question. I mean, I think we played with when we first started, when we first started, we weren't even playing. There was not many death metal bands playing around by us when we first started. So the first couple of shows we played were weird, like talent contests and stuff like that, where we would play with like bands that ranged from like new wave to goth.
Jesus Christ! So then you guys come on and scare most of the audience away.
Well, this is a good story. Like the first show we ever played was at a place called Hammerheads, I think, and I'll never forget that. I was so stage frightened. I spent the entire show facing my amplifiers. But beside the point, I'll never forget. It was like a talent contest thing, and I'll never forget. I got off stage, and a girl came up. This goth girl came up to me, and she goes, "Your music is so scary." And I'll never forget that. It was just like, okay, whatever. And then we started playing. With, you know. Then we got a couple of lucky breaks. We played at this place called the Roxy on Long Island, and the promoter there was like the owner was like an old school guy. Like if he saw a band with potential, he would try to develop the band. And thank God for him. Frank Cariola is his name. We played our first show. I don't remember who we played with, but it was a big death metal band. Maybe it was Bolt Thrower or whatever. And we really got the crowd going, you know, and we sold a lot of merchandise and all that. And I'll never forget the owner, Frank Cariola, coming up to me. He says, "You guys are really good. You got something good going. I'll let you know when there's another good show coming through, and I want you guys to open it." And this guy, what a great guy, like old school guy. He really believed in us. And like, after a couple of shows, we started making money. Not a ton. I'm not saying like making, but like, he'd give me a pile of money, and he'd be like, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, thank you." He's like, "Don't thank me." He's like, "You brought all these people here. They said internal bleeding at the door, you know?" And he's like, "Keep going." He's like, I got another, you know, whatever. Morbid Angel's coming in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I want you guys to open up the show, you know? And that was just like, that was our start, you know, and kind of owe it all to that guy, Frank Cariola. And it's funny, years later, I moved to a town, and Frank had opened up another club, and it failed, unfortunately, because music wasn't the same here on Long Island. But I saw him at like 2:00 in the morning. I was coming home from drag racing or whatever. And I walked up to him, and I'm like, "Frank Cariola, I'm Chris Pervelis from Internal Bleeding." And he's like, gave me a huge hug, asked me how I was doing, asked me if the band was still around. You know, what a, really, really, you know, there's not many people left like that in the world that really, he was an old school guy that took a shine to our band and really helped us in our career.
I was just about to ask you now.
He got us off the ground. If it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Are you still in touch with him at all?
No, I don't know where he is. He's like probably dead now.
Yeah.
But every time I've seen him, I've thanked him because I owe him, and I owe Richard C. from Wild Rags. Believe it or not, those are my two biggest. Those were this band's two biggest champions. And Richard C. was a lot of people hated Richard C. They called him a ripoff. You know, a lot of bands called him a ripoff and all that. And him and I would talk on the phone every single day. And he goes, "Chris, you know what?" He's like, "People complain about me." He's like, "But a lot of these bands expect me to do all the work, and I'm not going to do it." But he's like, "You work hard. Your band works hard. I'm going to work just as hard for you." And that really stuck with me. And then what stuck with me once we played our first US tour, I'll never forget this. He came to the show and I was thrilled because I love the guy. I love the guy. I mean, I had such a great relationship with him. I literally talked with him on the phone every single day. Okay. And he came to our show in LA and I was so overjoyed. And I'll never forget, I was giving somebody a discount on a t-shirt and he fucking hit me. And I was like, what? He's like, they pay full price. And I'm like, why? He's like, because he's not a real fan. A real fan will pay full price. Think of it like politics. A purchase is a vote. And they have to be fully committed to you. That's how you make fans. That's how you build a fan base. And I still give discounts to people. I kind of brush that aside. But what stuck with me was the whole, if somebody purchases something from you, that's a vote and you owe them something. And I've taken that to heart. I owe our fans, I say I, because you and I are talking, but I go as far as I can go, humanly possible, to the detriment of my family sometimes, to give our fans everything I have, because I'm like I dreamed of doing this as a little kid with sitting with a tennis racket at 5 years old, playing along the Black Sabbath songs, pretending I was on stage. And now there's people who like my band and I get to travel the world and I get to do all this cool shit. Like, it's the greatest thing in the world. And if I can repay it by going out of my way to write a 7-paragraph response to a fan's email, I'll do it. It's a sacred trust. And it's, I think it's a shame that a lot of bands lose that perspective.
Yeah. Well, just backtracking for a second about the, somebody handing something or handing over money, that's that being a vote. I've said this to other folks before. I definitely think there's power in handing over money to buy a CD by a band or it's the same as there is buying a t-shirt or whatever the case may be, but especially CDs. And I think, at least for a period of time, I think COVID may have reset the balance a little bit there because people realized what they were losing. So now the energy at shows is a little bit different again. But prior to COVID, there was like this wussiness that had crept into shows. Like, people were just sort of standing there with their arms crossed. They're not really doing anything. And a lot of that I felt stemmed from the fact that they weren't actually having to pay money for music anymore. So it wasn't like when I was, my early 20s or in my teens where, you would take the last cent that you had earned, whether it's through your pocket money or your side hustle, whatever the case may be, and hand that over. And you'd be more than happy to do so because the music meant there was so much value in that music and in owning that CD to you. And then, when streaming came in, it kind of took all of that away. But I wanted to ask you, when was the first time that you guys traveled outside of the US or that you guys toured outside of the US?
Does Canada count?
Well, it's completely different to the US, so yes.
Right. Okay. So we got lucky early. We got lucky early. I mean, we did a tour with we did a little Canadian tour with Cryptopsy when Ungentle Exhumation came out.
Oh shit.
Yeah, we did, I think we did 3 or 4 shows with them. And that was a huge thrill for me because when Cryptopsy first came out, when that demo came out, everybody was blown away. And you need the perspective of time because when Ungentle came out, nobody was playing that fast. Nobody. And and Flo and those guys broke the fucking barrier. And we were like, Jesus Christ, this is insane. And then we got to tour with them for 3 or 4 days in Canada. I think, what was this, 92 or 93? I can't remember the year. It was early. It
would have been about 93. Yeah. That's when that demo came out.
Okay, so it would be 93. And it was so much fun. We had, I can remember it was during the summer because we were driving from Montreal to Quebec City. And we had the side of the van door open the whole time because we were all smoking. I mean, everybody smoked cigarettes, so we were all smoking. And we invented this whole style. I'll never forget me and Steve Thibault, who was the guitarist at the time. We invented this whole thing that Canadians. So in Canada, in America, they bale hay in squares. In Canada, they bale hay in circles. And we invented this whole thing that the hay was actually marijuana, and we were calling it round weed. And we invented this whole cartel about the Canadian cartel exporting round weed around the world, and all the so much fun. And the shows were great. You know, they were just awesome. And then, like, I think a year later, we did a run with Dying Fetus in Canada. And that would have been
right around the time when Purification Through Violence came out.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. And that was fun. That was in the winter, and that was brutal. The snow was just, we pulled over. I'll never forget. We pulled over. The snow was so bad coming home from Quebec City that we pulled over into like a gas station or something. And we all went to sleep, and we woke up and the snow was like up to the windows. It was just, Jesus. Oh man, you're bringing back some great memories, man. These were a lot of fun times, and a lot of, you know, if I did, I wouldn't do that now because I'm 55 years old. Like, I'd be like, this is crazy. I'm not driving through a huge snowstorm to play a fucking show, but we did it, you know? I mean, it was like, you know, we were in our, I think I was in my late 20s. Everybody else was in their teens and early 20s, you know, and we were just like, fuck this metal. Yeah, let's go. You know, and we just fucking plowed through it, and it was great, man. I'm glad I got to experience it.
Yeah. You know? That would have been such a perfect fit for you guys. Dying Fetus is, I mean, they'd be a perfect fit for you guys now, but Dying Fetus around that time, because they were the only other band that were doing things, at least from a groove perspective, at least to a certain degree to what you guys were doing. Absolutely. Like Purification Through Violence was the first record that I heard that gave me some of that voracious contempt energy. So I was about to say those shows must have been fucking nuts. As far as
in Canada they were, but us and Dying Fetus played a lot of shows in the early days, and honestly nobody showed up.
Jesus.
There's actually a few cool YouTube videos of a show. Us and Dying Fetus played at a place called Wilmer's Park in Maryland. That's in Dying Fetus's hometown, and there's maybe 20 people there. And it's great because you can see John Gallagher in our pit, like the only guy in our pit going fucking crazy and shit.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Nobody got it. I don't think I mean, people got it once. People got it, but it wasn't like there's this fog of reminisce that. I mean, sure, some of the shows were crazy, but a lot of the shows sucked. You know, a lot of the shows us and Dying Fetus played together sucked, and a lot of people didn't like us and didn't like Dying Fetus because I can remember getting letters with actual shit on the letter.
Jesus.
Saying you guys suck.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I had short hair, you know, and then even a little later, Frank Rini was bald. And this was before metalheads had short hair, you know, and we got made fun of for that. Oh, these fucking hardcore guys, this isn't fucking metal, blah, 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 blah. So we did get slings and arrows, and like every show back then wasn't that great. You know, I mean, everybody thought they were. I mean, there were a lot of great shows too. I'm saying, but it wasn't like people thought it was. It was a struggle to get our sound out to people. And it was a struggle for Dying Fetus as well. You know, and I'll never forget, I think it was Jason bought our Invocation of Evil demo. And then months later, he sent the Bathes in. Months later or a year later, he said sent the Bathe in Entrails demo to me. We immediately got on the phone with each other, and I'll never forget it. It's like we both talked to each other, and we were like, "You get it. You understand. You understand what we're trying to do. No, you understand what we're trying to. You know, it was it was like kindred spirits thing, you know. It was a great thing, and they went on to a lot more success than we did, and that's because they caught a lot of breaks that we didn't catch, you know. And that's all right. I mean, every time I see John, it's big hugs, and I wish we can get on shows with them, but it's kind of hard. So because they're in a different atmosphere than we are, you know.
Yeah.
So
it does feel like now it would also be a really good fit for you, for the two bands to be on together. I mean, you know, I know you shared some festival lineups and stuff like that, but yeah, it definitely feels like now would almost be the perfect opportunity for you guys to go out on the road with them, especially after this new album that they've just put out.
I am not going to make any comments.
Yeah,
I have some very strong opinions on why it doesn't happen, and I'm not going to comment about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of it's political, and a lot of it doesn't have anything to do with John or the band.
Yeah,
they're just in a different world than we are, you know, and we're knocking on that door, and technically we should be through that door, but we just keep knocking on it. Eventually we're going to knock it over, but you know, with IB, we've had to force our way into everything. We've never had any luck or anything like that. It's always been hard work and overcoming bullshit and shit like that. You know, we've never caught a lucky break.
Yeah.
You know, and some bands catch a lucky break. Some bands, you know, it's just, that's the industry. I mean, you know, there's no logic to it. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get peaceful with it.
Yeah.
And I'm peaceful with it. I used to get mad at it. I used to get really mad at it because I'd see bands and I'd be like, Jesus Christ, I wrote those riffs 20 years ago. And look at this. And I've just made peace with it, you know, and it's all good because I'm 55. I'm still here doing it, and I get to see fans, and I get to have a good time, and I get to hang out with my brothers, and life is good, man, you know? And that's a victory in itself, because a lot of people have shitty lives, and I don't. I have a very good life, knock on wood, and I'm thankful, you know, and I'm glad I found a way to get peaceful with my anger about it, you know? So,
well, that's also very important as you get older, because I mean, that sort of shit, that stress will kill you. I mean, people get like, you know, if someone is listening to this right now and they're in their 20s, you're not thinking about it right now, but trust me, when you hit your 40s, you're going to start thinking about it, because you start knowing people that are having, you know, heart problems. There's a guy that I went to school with who killed over a heart attack and died 2 years ago. He was 42 years old. I mean, shit like that starts becoming a real concern to you. So you start thinking about how to, you know, stress management as an example. And the exact circumstance you just mentioned now, it's, you know, things outside of your control. That's one of the main drivers of stress. So I'm glad you feel that way, and I'm glad you've kind of gotten to that point. But I also do feel like there is every possibility that with a great new Internal Bleeding record and the right, you know, the right management, the right, you know, playing on the right shows, like this is still going to be like if there were a movie made about Internal Bleeding, it's still going to be a feel good movie, because I definitely feel like there's like the band star feels on the ascent to me.
I appreciate that, man. I am so jazzed about our new album. It's done. It's written. Our drummer's learning all the drums right now, getting all the drums straight, and then we're going to record. Chris and I. So Chris McCarthy and I are the primary songwriters. And him and I have two kind of different styles. And our last album, how do I explain? Our last album, we were blending the styles, and it was kind of cool. But this album, we really like, you know, Dr. Spock, Vulcan mind melded with each other. And like, I'm really psyched about this new album. It sounds like it's Internal Bleeding, but it sounds like nobody else. You can't put your finger on I'm not saying it's breaking new territory or whatever, but you can't. It's just I'm like really jazzed about it. I can't wait to get it out. It's called Settle All Scores, and it's called Settle All Scores for a reason. It's basically payback for all the shit we've been through. So every song is basically about somebody or somebody in the music scene that has fucked us or treated us with disrespect. And you'll never know who it is because we don't mention it.
Yeah.
You'll never know who it is, but it's a very personal album for me, especially, but also for Chris, because Chris has been in the scene a long time too.
Yeah.
And he's been fucked over by a lot of people too. So it's a very personal album for us. Can't wait to release it. I hope we do it soon. It's up to Kyle. It's up to Kyle to get it all down and be comfortable with it for us to be able to record. So
I was about to say, have you guys got an idea of whenabouts you'd be putting it out?
We're hoping to start
back end of next year.
Yeah, we're hoping to start recording in January or February.
And is it going to be out on Unique Leader again?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Awesome. I loved that Overthrow Creation single you guys put out in 2021. So if it's anywhere down that route, I am very much on board for it. I absolutely love the last full length record as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I love Overthrow Creation. That's, oh my God, that dun 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 dun. It's just it's you see, you don't have to be complicated to be great. No. That riff hits fucking hard as fuck. And then, another thing is, speaking of that, another thing is the lyrics. Some people made fun of how many times we said the word Overthrow Creation. But you know what? When we play that song live, the crowd is singing along to the whole fucking song.
Yeah.
And that just makes me over the moon happy.
Yeah.
And that's we're not a complicated band. We want people to be happy. We want people to walk away remembering a song. It's that simple, man.
Yeah. Final thing, and I have to bring this up because I know I owe you an article. So the Metal Gentleman.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
I owe you an article on how to do steak, and I haven't.
Yes,
I've actually taken photos.
So bad, dude.
Yeah, I've actually taken photos when I've done it, but I will try and do it in the next couple of weeks before I go on holiday. I'll try and do one. I'll try and do a proper one. And
Please do, because I would love to post it. It's actually growing a cool fan base of metalheads. Yeah. It's really neat. I love doing it. It all started as a joke, not a joke. So I got my drummer and my bass player into old school shaving with an old school safety razor.
Yeah.
And you're a beard guy, so you don't know safety razors.
No.
But
I get my neck cleaned up with one when I go to the
with a safety razor or a straight razor, either one.
Actually, straight razor.
Yeah. So I shave here with either once a week with a straight razor, old fashioned, and then most of the week with an old fashioned safety razor. And if anybody who shaves and gets like pimples and stuff like that, they're using the wrong. Like I'm trying to educate people. 10 blades are worse for your skin than one old school like the GIs used to do with a safety razor, a Gillette safety razor. Anyway, I started this website because I wanted to try using a new website building technology. That was the impetus for starting this. And then I started doing reviews on, aftershave, shaving, all old school stuff because I'm an old school guy. And all of a sudden I get like 18-year-olds emailing me like, wow, I tried a safety razor for the first time. I bought one at Walmart. I never knew you could shave like this. It's great, blah, 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 and then I started doing bourbon reviews and watch reviews, all the stuff that I love. I love watches. I'm a watch collector. So I started writing about that, and I started, started writing about cars, and now I have a following, and I never thought I would have a following, and it's a lot of fun. And why I asked you is because I'm jealous of the pictures you post. Like I wish
Dude, I'd happily do one for you.
Like I'm a rib guy. I love making ribs, and I'm a steak guy, and I have my way of making steak. But you take things to a whole new level, and I think if I shared that with the Metal Gentleman's fan base, they would eat it up. No pun intended.
Yeah, no, well, I will definitely do it. I'll definitely do it. And I love the website too. It's my thoughts when I saw you'd put it out was like, yeah, this is definitely one of my kind of dudes. Like I'm not one of those guys that believes that because you're a metalhead, you need to look like you're a fucking homeless person,
Right.
So I'm same as you. I love the finer things in life. I like good aftershave. I like taking care of myself. I like getting a good haircut. I like eating well. My friend is a really avid watch collector. Like he's got a watch collection that is, fucking jaw dropping. When I'm in Cape Town in a couple of weeks' time, I'll take a few photos and send them.
Please do.
I never went down that road. I've got like 5 or 6 pieces, but I never went down that road because I spent so much money on my hi-fi. That's my real indulgence, is like high-end or like audiophile sound. Yeah, I think the whole concept of the site is fucking great. I absolutely love it. And I'm glad to hear people are latching onto it as well.
Yeah. Wait, so you're a high-end audiophile. Do you know that I have a complete Scott tube system?
Oh no, I didn't know that at all.
Oh yeah. My brother-in-law, God bless him, he died. He left me his entire Scott system from the 1960s. It's awesome. Yeah. I should take pictures and send it to you. I haven't set it up. I'm gonna set it up, but he also left me like 20 guitar amplifiers. Just incredible. What he left me was incredible. What a great guy he was.
Yeah.
But regardless, I love that shit. But I got how did I get it? I don't know how I got into watches because I got in a discussion with one of my clients about watches.
Mm.
And then I realized, like, when I started digging into watches and I started looking at the complexity of mechanical movements, not quartz battery watches, but actual mechanical movements, it's incredible.
Mm.
The craftsmanship and the attention to detail that's involved is just, it's mind-blowing. And I went, it's like music, drag racing, and watches, and bourbon, and cigars. Like, that's my good life stuff. And that's what I write about on the Metal Gentleman, and a lot of this stuff is affordable. Maybe not the cars. I'm into classic muscle cars and they're overpriced as hell. But like mechanical watches, you can get a good Seiko, a beautiful Seiko mechanical watch, a beautiful piece of art for $200. It's an affordable. There's plenty of affordable luxuries out there that people don't know about. Like aftershaves, there's aftershaves on a drugstore shelf that are just as good as aftershaves that are 17 times the price.
The best.
That's kind of what I want to impart to people. You can live the good life, the luxury life, and you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm not rich by any means. Listen, I have some very expensive watches and I have some very expensive aftershave, but 90% of my collections are seeking out and experimenting and finding something that's awesome, that's at a good price. And then I post that on the Metal Gentleman, because I want everybody can live the good life. You don't have to be a millionaire to live the good life.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's about just being selective and careful with what you spend your money on. Forgo instant gratification, because sometimes just hanging fire for 6 months or whatever the case may be is a smart move. And equally, like when it comes to watches and stuff like that, go on eBay. It's the same with hi-fi. I mean, my initial hi-fi setups all came off eBay. I've been fortunate enough that I've befriended somebody who's in the trade, so I get obscene discount off of stuff that I buy now. And I've, in the job that I do, I've had some very big bonuses, and they have financed some pretty major upgrades. But you can put together something for $1,500 or £1,500 off eBay that will blow your mind, and it's going to be way better than the £600-700 crap that you can buy. The Sonos sound bar or whatever the case may be. You're going to use it for years and years and years, and you're going to be able to take every single record that you've loved over the years and go back and listen to it and go, Jesus, I never heard that before. I didn't hear this bit in that song previously. That kind of ties into what you said before. I mean, really kind of savoring the good things in life rather than everything just being so, quick and over the counter and disposable. One side note.
Go ahead.
Favorite aftershave that I have discovered over the course of the last maybe even 15 years. I never used to like Tom Ford aftershaves because they smelt a little effeminate to me, but I picked up one when I was at the airport on the way to South Africa last year called Ombre Leather. It literally smells like leather. It's got this leathery smell to it, and then like with this like spicy, like a couple of different spices in the secondary and tertiary notes. But
right,
Jesus, it's fucking fantastic.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look into it. It was reasonably priced.
Yeah, it's not cheap. It was. I think I paid about. This was a year ago. I paid £78 for 100 mils.
Okay,
so it's not that bad. But I mean, it's lasted me. I mean, I still have some of it left. It's lasted me over a year.
There's a lot of artists.
I'll send you a link on Facebook now.
Yeah, please do. Thankfully, there's a lot of artisan guys here in America who make aftershaves. I've gotten some amazing aftershaves for $20 that last all day. That compete with something 7 times the price. And these are guys who are like, black magicians working in their basement, making stuff. Yeah. And it's just awesome. I wanted to go back to the hi-fi thing. One of the things I appreciate about older hi-fi systems, and I think you'll appreciate this. So like the Scott tuner I have, the tuning knob is so smooth and so precise and so heavy. It feels like a ton when you turn it, and it's just like that tactical feel. What?
Well, they actually call it knob feel. So whenever you read like
okay, so there is a thing. Yeah. I don't know like you, but like that knob feel is just like it's weighted. And it's just like somebody put love into that,
Well, that's the thing too. It's a bit like with watches where, a lot of the higher end stuff, part of the reason why it's so expensive is because it's made to order. They don't have tons and tons of these stuff, being mass produced in a warehouse. Right. When you place the order is when that thing was, it went through to the factory and they made it. And it's normally 2-3 people that put it together for you at most.
Right.
There's a speaker brand called Kef, and I mean when they do any of their, I think they're reference series speakers, you actually get like a note with a speaker that has like a signature of the guy that built the speaker for you. It's one guy that does it. That's awesome. He does it from start to finish, which is why literally every single set of speakers is it's a millionth of a percentage difference, but it's still unique. It's still unique in its own way because it was made by a different person.
So now, are you a digital guy or are you an analog guy?
I'm a digital guy because I don't have the space on my shelf for a record player. So if you see how much, I'll send you some pictures. But if you see how much stuff I have on my shelf, I don't have the room for a record player. But what I have is it is about as good and as close as you're going to get to an analog sound as you possibly can. So it's not overly bright. It's kind of got that warmth of analog in the sound, and that comes from the amplifier and it comes from the DAC. Right. But my setup right now, I could not be happier with how it sounds. I mean, I will undoubtedly make changes to it, but
yeah, of course, you're always going to have to make changes.
Yeah,
I've got a guy that I smoke cigars with. He's a huge audiophile, and he goes on these rants. Oh my God, these rants about digital versus analog. and he goes miles deep into oversampling, and digital's never gonna get the smooth wave as a blah 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 blah, and he goes so into the fucking weed. But like his sound system is fucking insane, and it's all tube, and it's like, but he hates digital like with a burning passion. Like he'll like come to the cigar shop with charts, you know.
I know fair few people,
and
like
he'll
that,
say a sound wave is a natural wave like this, and it's smooth, and no matter how many times you oversample, it's always going to be squares, and it'll never be smooth. That's his big thing. And he's like, I can hear the fucking difference. I can't. I'm not. My ears can't hear.
Nor can I. I can hear the difference. I recently bought something by a company called Edian called a master clock. So in order to kind of help smooth out that sound wave, that the master clock is there to kind of sit between your DAC and your streamer, and effectively takes the signal that comes from the USB cable, and then it reworks it so when it goes back out into the streamer, that sound wave is smoothed out. I could hear a difference, but you hear the difference come in, by way of like the sound stage is a bit bigger. Maybe everything sounds, or the timing sounds a little bit more accurate. If you play certain songs on it, like you'll hear it with jazz quite a lot. Like I'll test it on things like Radiohead or Fleetwood Mac, or I recently started testing.
I love Fleetwood Mac, by the way.
Yeah, me too, and especially for
testing. Wait. Early Fleetwood Mac or?
No, actually, for me, I'm the biggest sellout when it comes to Fleetwood Mac. So Rumors all the way. So my favorite,
but my favorite album is Bare Trees.
I haven't actually really spent much time listening to
that.
Oh
my God, Danny Kerwin is such a good guitar player.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Green was great. Danny Kerwin is oh my God. Listen to Bare Trees, dude. Yeah. So fucking good.
No, I'll check it out. When I test using a Fleetwood Mac song, I usually use Goldust Woman, or I use Chains.
Okay.
Because there's so many, it's so well recorded, and again, like it will very quickly tell you if something is amiss, or like the balance is out, or whatever the case may be. But the point that I was making is that master clock does a fantastic job of smoothing out the sound wave. Yeah.
And speaking of the Chain and Goldust Woman, and so I like the first Fleetwood Mac, the first one with Lindsey Buckingham. Rumors I like, but I like the first. Monday Morning is one of my favorite songs. Great. Lindsey Buckingham is one of the most underrated guitarists ever.
No, he's incredible. Absolutely
unbelievable.
The craziest thing about who turned me on to Fleetwood Mac was Matt Wilcock, who's the guitarist for Antichrist Imperium and Werewolves. It's like some of the most mellow stuff I've gotten into in my life has been from the most stone hard, grim men you can come across. Morgan from Marduk got me into Woven Hand.
Oh Woven Hand's awesome.
Yeah, I was talking to him once about like what music he's into, and it's like, yeah, I'm listening to 16 Horsepower and Woven Hand. I was like, I've never heard of them before in my life. It's like, okay, we'll check them out. So yeah, it's always interesting where you kind of get some of these cues from to check different bands.
That's all. That's I love when metal musicians come up with like off the wall shit to listen to.
Yeah.
Like Guy Marchais, who I think is probably, he used to play in Suffocation. I think he's probably one of the most talented guitarists on the planet. He could play, if you said, Guy, play a country song, in a second, he could play a country song. Guy, play a jazz song. He got me into Frank Zappa. And like, I would never expect somebody who's a diehard Guy was a diehard metalhead. Never expect him to love Frank Zappa. And he got me so far down the rabbit hole in Frank Zappa. It's just like, and I love that. People like Chris McCarthy, my other guitarist, will go on tour and he got me into a band called Drab Majesty. I don't know if you know who they are.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. He got me into them. We'd be driving at 3:00 in the morning and Drab Majesty would be playing, and we'd watch, we'd watch the silhouette of LA disappear in our sights at night. and Drab Majesty playing, and it's just like magic, you know. And he's a diehard metalhead, you know. I mean, like fucking, he's a Pantera guy, he's a fucking Dying Fetus guy, you know. And here he is listening to Drab Majesty, you know, and he totally got me into them. I love that. I love to see that metalheads like stuff that's not metal.
Yeah. Well, again, kind of like this Metal Gentleman website. I just love I love the vibe of it being antithetical to, especially here in the UK, these, you know, hobo looking guys that, you know, that you're supposed to be like if you're into this kind of music, which to me is just ridiculous.
Yeah, me
but
too.
Brother, I'm going to let you go. What an absolute pleasure catching up with you as always. And I really hope that at some point, hopefully in 2024, we do one of these face to face, because I think
God, I hope we can get over there.
Yeah.
You and I can hang out. You're going to cook for me.
Oh yeah.
I'll bring you some good whiskey, and we'll have a right proper conversation. And we'll have I would love it, man. You and I are like, I feel like we're kindred spirits in a way, you know?
Yeah. Same. Yeah, I completely agree. So,
you know,
that's why I say definitely.
I hope your fans and your subscribers enjoy this dumb conversation we had, because I certainly enjoyed it. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I don't know, man. I appreciate you giving me the time to spew my bullshit.
Anytime, brother. And we'll definitely do another one of these regardless. But like I said, one of them for sure we need to do face to face.
I hope I you know what? I mean, like, I hope so, man. I don't know how many years I have left, but even if I'm out of the band and you're in the States, and if you're in New York, you come to my house, I will treat you proper, and we will eat and we will drink and we will go swimming in my pool. And if the track is open, we'll go drag racing and we'll have a good time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan to me.
All right, brother.
All right, brother. Take care of yourself.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Creation, overload all mass devastation.
Unmistakably internal bleeding. That is a song called Overthrow Creation. It was released back in 2021. A primer, if you will, for what the next internal bleeding record might sound like. And if I had to place bets based on what Chris was saying, I would guess that we are going to hear that towards the back end of 2024. Equally, if I were a betting man, I'd say there's a very good chance that Chris is going to be on the show well in advance of that happening. A big thanks and a shout out to him. What a nice guy. What a blast catching up with him. And I hope you enjoyed that just as much as I did recording it. Of course, I'll post the Internal Bleeding Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. You have some time to catch up on some of the earlier releases in advance of that new record coming out. If you haven't done so yet, 2018's Corrupting Influence is an absolute beast of a record, but really the same can be said of just about everything in their discography. Right now, my friends, if you believe there are any circumstances in which it is permissible and acceptable for a man's man to have his steak well done, then it might be time for you to get to stepping, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
All right, my friends, we are going to start with the week's most pressing news, and you will recall that about 2 weeks ago, I predicted on this very segment of the podcast that in 2 weeks' time, Decibel would be dropping their top 40 of 2023, and lo and behold, they have gone and done so. Now, I did say at the start of the show, or I referred to this as a national embarrassment at the start of the show. Hopefully you guys know that, that was said very much tongue-in-cheek. The reality of it is, I actually quite like that the magazines and some of the websites bring out their albums of the year lists early, because especially if they do it right before I go on vacation, it means I can actually fill the blanks in and listen to some stuff that maybe flew under my radar while I'm away. And then when I bring you the definitive list in January, as I'm going to do with my 3-part mega series upon my return from South Africa, then you get something that's, as robust as I can possibly make it. But that being said, before anybody takes to Reddit and starts crying about me being mean to the staff of Decibel magazine or whatever the case may be, I completely understand these lists are subjective. I understand that, my tastes aren't necessarily going to correlate with everybody else's tastes, etc., etc., etc. So, let's get into it. It says here, most readers and subscribers do not have the January 2024 issue of Decibel yet, but we all know someone is going to post the top 40 albums of the year somewhere online. For the last decade, we've been forced to beat them to the punch, so if you're actually a Decibel subscriber and prefer remaining in suspense until the United States Postal Service gets their shit together, please read no further. You're going to be waiting for a very long time, because anything that the government runs is a fucking shambles. But anyway, for the rest of you still here, there are 3 key things to consider since we began this annual tradition 19 years ago. Number 1, yes, we know it's November. Don't make me explain how print deadlines work or remind you of our access to advanced music. 2, the list is still a reflection of the diverse tastes of nearly 3 dozen members of the Decibel staff. And 3, at least one of your favorite albums from this past year is likely to not be included. I can confidently state the second point because my album of the year isn't here. Unlike me, at least you can complain about it on the internet. By the way, folks, before I carry on, I just want to say I have been suffering from some fucking wasting disease over the last couple of days. I don't know whether it was man flu, which obviously, as you know, is the worst kind of illness, or whether it was some strain of COVID. But either way, if my voice sounds a bit weird, or if if I'm coughing, or if I'm not as mentally sharp as I should be, just know that's the reason why. Hopefully, the testosterone in me is going to scare off whatever fucking germs remain in me by the end of today, or the end of this week at the very least, because I certainly don't want to be feeling like this when I head into the weekend. But anyway, let's get into it. We're not going to go through every single one of the albums that have been included on the top 40, but right from the off, I just want to raise a couple of red flags. So the most important is the bands that they've not included on this list. So first of all, you've got the omission of Marduk Werewolves, Primordial, Verminous Serpent, Dying Fetus, Ruim. And then I would make an argument to say Cloak, Necrofire, and Trivax should have been on this list as well. Now, there's probably a couple more that I'll add over the course of time. I can understand that when it comes to Primordial and Marduk in particular, they were probably left off due to reasons of virtue signaling. But I'm very surprised not to see Ruim, and I'm really surprised not to see Dying Fetus either. Those I would have expected, to be pretty unanimous. I mean, certainly the reviews praised all of them unanimously. And I would have expected to see those pretty high up on the list. But either way, not including Werewolves, let's be perfectly honest, it bestows instant soy status on everybody's list. That's, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, at number 40, they've got Dodheim's God with Black Medium Current. A lot of the Legion have been talking to me about this record and telling me how great it is. I myself have not yet clicked. I've not gelled with this album just yet. I've listened to it a couple of times, or I've attempted to listen to it a couple of times, and when I hear it, I like what I hear, but I never get into it to the degree that, Marco from Stellar Master Elite has done. I know my good friend Nathan of Gravier is also, a big fan of this record, so that'll have to be one that'll wait for the vacation. I will try my best to give it, my full attention. But as it stands now, I'm not quite seeing the hype for it just yet. Down at number 37, they've got Dying of Everything by Obituary. Now, this one also surprised me because when it comes to like the franchise level releases in death metal in 2023, there have been many. We've had new records by Cryptopsy, Suffocation, Cannibal Corpse. I've mentioned Dying Fetus. I believe all of those records are superior to Obituary. And I know they've got Cannibal Corpse higher up on the list, but, as far as like those franchise level releases, I enjoyed Dying of Everything, but to me it's a 7.5 out of 10 record at best. And it's not one that I can honestly say I've gravitated back towards listening to on a particularly frequent basis. Over the course of the last, however long it's been out for, I think about 10 months. So, great to see they're getting some recognition. It's nice that Obituary are still putting out records that people generally like, but as far as I'm concerned, there were way, way better records by long-established names in the scene put out this year than, we've necessarily gotten from Obituary. Down at number 33, they have got Cattle Decapitation with Terrorsight. I mean, aside from the fact that the album cover is atrocious, this one also surprised me because I thought it would be much higher up. Again, unanimous support for that album when it came out. I absolutely love the record. I think if anything, maybe they're getting penalized here for the fact that the album cover stinks. But I would have expected to see that in the top 10, if not, top 5 of a publication like Decibel. But be that as it may, we'll get to the records that supplanted it in a little bit. One nice surprise, at number 30, they've got Kriegsgrav, Fires in the Fall. Dedicated members of the Legion will know I've had Jay from Kriegsgrav on the show. We also premiered the first single of Fires in the Fall on Into the Necrosphere before anybody else. I've got to know Jay. He's a fantastic guy. I think the guys in Kriegsgrav are, just generally speaking, fantastic stand-up dudes. I know they work incredibly hard on that band, and they worked incredibly hard on this album. And so no matter the shade I may throw at it, like I said, tongue-in-cheek, there is still the reality that, Decibel is a highly influential publication, and to be on a list like this, if you're a band like Kriegsgrav, is fucking awesome. So, well done to those guys. Going down, we've got Incantation with Unholy Deification at number 25. Again, I'm quite pleased for them. And it's like I've said when I had them on the podcast, I feel like Incantation's star is very much on the ascent. At number 24, we've got a band that I've not heard of before called Filth is Eternal. They've got a record called Find Out, which is due on, or which was released by MNRK Records. I think maybe let's give that a quick listen and see if it's worth anything. So, Filth is Eternal, Find Out. I'm just going to grab whatever random song I can find that makes sense for me to hear. So we'll go for a tune called Crawl Space. The songs are pretty short, so they seem to be either super like a super grind band or a punk band, but we'll find out soon enough. That to me sounds like L7 if they were a punk band and they didn't benefit from the charm of Donita Sparks' vocals. That's how that sounds to me. Might be other people's cup of tea, but it's not mine. At number 23, we've got Cannibal Corpse with Chaos Horrific, one of the best Cannibal Corpse albums that I can recall hearing for quite some time. Down at number 20, we've got Rid of Me with a record called Access to the Lonely, another band I don't really know. Rid of Me, if I'm not mistaken, is the name of a PJ Harvey record or a song. Yes, it is. As I'm doing the search now, there's a whole bunch of PJ Harvey videos that are coming up now. So I do want to hear this very quickly. I have a hunch how this is going to sound based on the song title, and now, the album title. And now that I see the album cover, I have an even bigger hunch of how it's going to sound. But let's hear if I'm right or wrong. I'm only going to be able to put up with so much. This, to me, if you see the album cover in particular, it has blue hair, a copy of Karl Marx's The Communist Manifesto, and confused activism written all over it. There is no fucking way you can convince me that's better than the new Primordial or the new Marduk. I mean, you know what it reminds me of? It's like those really bad pub bands that have a front woman who's easy on the eye, believes that she is the reincarnation of PJ Harvey, and flanking her is her boyfriend guitarist, who himself is deluded enough to believe that he is incredibly edgy because all he listens to every single day is In Utero by Nirvana. If you grew up in South Africa, you would have come across quite a few of those bands, amongst the rest of the swill that forms the majority of, sadly, what my homeland's music scene offers up. At number 18, we've got Autopsy with Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts. That's pretty decent, but I don't know whether 18 is necessarily, or whether it merits, being put at 18. At number 15, The Night Eternal, Fatale. That was pretty decent. A nice surprise coming off of Van Records. I mean, it's effectively power metal, but it's like it's sort of cheesy, slightly occultish power metal, which I really enjoyed. At number 14, they've got Enslaved with Heimdall. And as I've now learned from bitter experience, if you dare say anything mean about Enslaved, even if you come from it as a fan, Be prepared for the pretend Norwegian fishermen to come at you on the internet. At number 13, Gel with Only Constant. Another band I've never heard, so let's give that a quick listen. I don't know about the name Gel for a band, but either way, let's give this a quick spin. Of Filth is Eternal, Rid of Me, Gel is probably the best out of the three. It sounds a little bit like Rid of Me if the singer got stuck in traffic for 3 hours and got really, really like smokingly pissed off. But I actually don't mind that. Top 30 material or top 40 material, I'm not so sure. Next up, we've got Enforced with War Remains. Massive disappointment as far as I'm concerned. Frozen Soul at number 8 with Glacial Domination. Massively overrated. There was a bunch of these throwback death metal projects that came out this year. Some of them were very good. Some of them were passable. I would put Frozen Soul in passable. I do not see the appeal. Panopticon at number 6. Godthram at number 5. Another disappointment in my opinion. And then our top 3 is rounded out by Wayfarer with American Gothic. That came out on Profound Lore, and that's actually a pretty interesting record. Again, whether or not it's not going to make my top 30, so spoiler alert. But I can definitely see how the more mainstream metal press, might have embraced that. It basically sounds like a slightly heavier Woven Hand, at least to these 43-year-old seasoned ears. And then at number 1 and 2, you've got two very interesting selections. 2 is Two Mold with the Enduring Spirit. That was a boring load of crap as far as I'm concerned. And I, just as a side note, there was that whole big, not furor, but there was an internet discussion that got quite lively about how the guys from Two Mold present themselves. I personally think that, I'm very much on the side of showmanship when it comes to, how you go on stage, how you present your band. I think looking the way that they do, they look like a bunch of fucking, guys that play World of Warcraft, 23 hours out of a 24-hour day. And that just doesn't do anything for me. I would much rather, Akrakaka in their prime with the suits, that sort of shit. I find that interesting. But, regardless of how they present themselves, the album I thought was dull. And then Horrendous is the number 1 record on the Decibel Top 40, and the album is called Ontological Mysterium. This really didn't even feature on my radar. I think we had it on the news rant, and I might have thought that it was okay, but I definitely don't feel like it wasn't one where I thought to myself, man, I have to listen to this. I can't wait for it to come out. And there were a lot of albums like that this year. So, overall, a couple of records that maybe I need to pay some more attention to, a couple of pretty questionable inclusions, and I think mostly very questionable exclusions on Decibel magazine. And like I've said before, not to sound conspiratorial, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a few envelopes, or at least a few favors that get passed around, especially with the best ofs by these magazines. Some of the inclusions and how high some of those bands are up on the list, I just always find to be a little bit odd. Not saying that it was the case with Decibel magazine, but there's a reason, for example, why on Metal Hammer it's always Behemoth or it's always Lamb of God. I am convinced that someone somewhere is doing somebody a favor, and that's why they push those bands. And it's not, the music industry has had form for that since the invention of AM radio. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to go over to metalstorm.net, and the first single I want to check out is actually a new single by Judas Priest. Now, that prior, or the first single off of this record, Panic Attack, I did not like at all. It sounded to me like a bad modern-day Xerox of Turbo Lover. But it says here, the almighty Judas Priest offer in listening a Trial by Fire song, a second excerpt of their upcoming new album Invincible Shield. The latter drops on March the 1st next year. Let's give it a quick listen. Just one quick thing to say, because the song will probably kick off properly in a second, but this actually reminds me a little bit in the first 32 seconds of the song of my favorite Judas Priest track not on Painkiller, because again, as far as I'm concerned, the 10 best songs that Judas Priest ever wrote, I think it's 10 songs total, they all made it onto Painkiller. But my favorite song that's not on Painkiller is a song called Judas is Rising off of the album Angel of Retribution, and this reminds me a little bit of that. I really, really like the way that they've used Halford's vocals here, particularly that harmony that's in the bridge section of the song. You know, I think it's smart writing overall because, you know, generally speaking, Halford may have one of the best voices, you know, of all time. You know, widely regarded by most of the metal scene, but he's also celebrating his 73rd birthday next year. So, you know, they're wise in the way that they're tailoring the songs to suit the best elements of his voice, because, you know, age is going to catch up to us all, even the metal god. But yeah, so far I am really liking this. Yeah, I like that. Thumbs up from me. I think overall the song reminds you of why when a Judas Priest record gets released, it is still regarded as an event by the vast majority of people who listen to metal. And, you know, you consider the fact that this is a band whose career spans 5 decades, and you absolutely have to acknowledge that we are most likely never going to see anything again like Judas Priest in our lifetimes. You know, there are bigger name bands, and most of you all know who I'm talking about, you know, who've been around for, you know, four decades, and they cannot put out, you know, music that still sounds this interesting and, that still resonates this much. So as much as I dislike Panic Attack, Trial by Fire is a good song. And I think, it's made me a little bit more interested in hearing what the whole thing sounds like when it comes out. It's not Painkiller, it's not Angel of Retribution, but it is definitely something that I'm going to want to check out. Speaking of things I'm going to want to check out, Paradise Lost start working on material for their next record. It says here, it's been 3 years since British metal veterans Paradise Lost released its most recent album Obsidian, but frontman Nick Holmes confirmed in a recent interview with Portugal's Metal Global that the band has been making progress on new material for their next album for a tentative 2024 or 2025 release. I'm not going to read his quote, but I will say I think it's going to be very interesting to see what direction they take with this new material. My view on Obsidian, for those of you guys that have heard me repeat it multiple times over the course of probably the last 100 or so episodes since it came out, is it was definitely a record where it had a split personality. There were elements of the album where they sounded to be really in their groove and really in their element, and there were parts of the record that sounded very very strained and very forced, which is not usual for Paradise Lost. They tend to go the other way, in which, where they will rather make music that kind of confounds some of the fan base than do stuff that kind of play to a brand or play to expectations. They seem to play to their own expectations only, and I think some of the heavier stuff on Obsidian, some of the more death doom stuff that had worked so well on Medusa and on The Plague Within, I don't think that it worked very well on Obsidian. Those songs to me sounded like songs that didn't make the cut for Medusa, and where they seemed to really kind of really, you got the sense that they were enjoying themselves was on songs like Hope Dies Young. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do on the next record. You may get the feeling that with the Host project that Greg and Nick have now got going, and the fact that Nick and Greg have got Strigoi and Bloodbath respectively, they kind of have outlets for, the death metal side of things. They've got outlets for the electronic side of things, and they can now focus maybe on doing more of that kind of goth metal that they're so good at doing. I certainly won't be averse to that, but I just want them to make an album that sounds to me like a record they want to make, and they've managed to do that for the vast majority of their careers. The only two exceptions, in my view, have been Believe in Nothing and Obsidian. And I would argue, as much as it won't be the popular choice or the popular opinion, that I actually think Believe in Nothing is a slightly better record than Obsidian. I would put Obsidian down as probably one of my weakest Paradise Lost records, and it's not bad. It's not a bad album. They're one of those bands that doesn't have a bad record, but it's not as great as I would have wanted it to be, as I was hoping that it would be. Another band that I will very much be looking forward to hearing new music by is Testament. It says here they're tracking their new record. Bay Area thrash metal legends Testament have checked in from the studio where the band is working on new material for the follow-up of 2020's Titans of Creation, due out sometime in 2024. It will be the band's first release, with former Seven Spires drummer Chris Dovas, who joined Testament earlier this year. Testament are another band who, if you haven't listened to Titans of Creation recently, then go back and do yourself a favor, and even if you just listen to a couple of songs, listen to Night of the Witch and listen to City of Angels, and then you tell me honestly whether there is any one of the big four who has put out something that comes close to that in a year dating after 1990, the year 1990, because, my friend, you're going to have a job on your hands doing that. One thing just to say as well, as a side note, I have already started pitching pretty hard with the folks over at Nuclear Blast to get Chuck Billy on the podcast once this album is released. So hopefully in 2024 we are going to see that happen. But either way, I'm going to be very excited about hearing a New Testament record next year. That is for goddamn sure. All right, Madam Mortem are back. It says here, Norwegians Madam Mortem are ready to unleash their 8th full-length offering titled Old Eyes, New Heart. Due out on January the 26th, 2024, official Metal for the Planet Day. There must be some sort of we've jokingly said there might be some sort of cosmic confluence that is causing every fucking band on the face of the earth to schedule their new album for that particular date, but Be that as it may, the album is out on Dark Essence Records on that date. It was recorded and produced by the band's guitarist, BPM Kokovar, and they've got a new single out called Tower, which we are going to listen to right now. I was and never have been and never will be a fan of bands like The Gathering, Lacuna Coil, I dread to even say the name, but Evanescence. But this is going to possibly surprise a couple of Legion members, but Madame Mortem has really always been an exception for me in that scene, and they've been an exception for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they have got a knack for writing heavy songs that don't necessarily sound intentional. It doesn't sound like they have gone out of their way to try and write something heavy, and then it just comes across as sounding strained and contrived, and like it's not necessarily convincing. There's something quite convincing and quite natural about the way that they write their songs versus a lot of, I would maybe argue, all of their peers in the scene. And then I will also say Annette, the vocalist, she's got an absolutely incredible voice, and if you after a great frame of reference for what I'm talking about, they put out 3 albums between 2001 and 2006 called All Flesh is Grass, Deadlands, and Deserata. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't done so yet. If it can convince someone like me, who's generally a skeptic of this style of music, then I am pretty sure it can convince quite a few of you too.
Toes across the line, 'cause in the corners of your eyes I see those towers. I see dark towers.
So yeah, I think on the first 2 minutes and 11 seconds of this song, they are pretty much hitting all the same beats that made them appealing to me in the first place. I like the riffs. I think overall the music sounds authentic. It sounds interesting. I think Annette still sounds absolutely sensational. The production is on point. So thumbs up for me overall. It won't be for everybody. If the vast majority of what you enjoy listening to is, blasting satanic black metal, then it's probably not going to be for you, but I quite enjoy it. Okay, speaking of blasting satanic black metal, we've got Black Altar dropping a new song. And it says here is the premiere of the Black Altar's new track Via Draconis, a piece from the upcoming split with Ophermod and Ocarontus, called Draconian Elitism. It gets released by Odium Records next month. Just as a quick side note, there's a record called Fiction Lust by a band out of Poland called Totenmessa. I might play a snippet off of it for you guys just now. I know I haven't done reviews this week or last week, so I'll give you guys just a little taste of it in a second, but make sure you give that a spin, because if ever there was a band that was fucking criminally missing from that Decibel Top 40, that album is absolute fire. But let's hear what Black Altar sounds like. Holy fuck. That bit we're listening to right now, that instantly takes this song from like 7.5 out of 10 good to just top notch, complete top notch. That's exactly what I was talking about when I had Chris on the podcast, and we were talking about like bands that know when to take something. I mean, it's not overly technical, but when to use simplicity effectively. 2 notes, and it just sounds completely and utterly filthy. Holy shit, that is fucking brilliant. And like every single thing works on that sequence. Like the rhythm in the guy's voice, just the whole vibe, the groove of the drummer. That is fucking fantastic. It'll be interesting to see whether this sparks a rebirth for Black Altar, because they have been around for a long time. They were based out of Poland originally. I think various members moved over here to the UK. The last actual full length they put out came out back in 2008. It's called Death Fanaticism, and then they've put out splits, and they've put out a couple of EPs, but nothing that got them on the track that frankly they should be, based on the strength of what we just heard there. So like I said, I hope that this is going to signal a rebirth of sorts for the band. But what we heard there, particularly in those last 60 seconds, that is top notch. There's no two ways about it. That's absolutely fucking fantastic. All payoff, and all bands need to learn and master that as an absolute essential of being an effective black or even death metal band. Okay, I'm going to very quickly play you guys just a snippet off of this album. So this was a recommendation by my bro, Marco of Stellarmaster Elite, a guy whose opinion I, generally speaking, always take very seriously because he always makes great recommendations. The album is called Fiction Lust. The band is out of Poland, and they're called Totenmessa. I think it's Totenmessa or Totenmess, either way. The song is called Confrontation Looks Like Hope. I'll let you guys hear the first 90 seconds or so. By the way, just excuse that cough midway during that, or in that last 10-15 seconds. But anyway, the point has been made. That is fucking absolutely fantastic. A quick review, at a review you should take seriously all the same. That gets 10 out of 10. The album is called Fiction Lust. It's available on Pagan Records. Proof that when it comes to black metal, Poland rarely misses. Alright, speaking of black metal, one of modern black metal's loudest detractors is back. Ihsahn announces the release of his next studio album. The self-titled music output comes out on February the 16th, 2024 through Candlelight Records. To taste a first piece of it, give a spin to the Pilgrimage to Oblivion single. The accompanying video clip was directed by the great Sean Hodson. I gotta say, I was starting to clear my throat, ready to put this on blast during those opening moments. If you're watching this on YouTube, the opening sequence of the video, basically, it looks like Bambi frolicking with his mother in the woods. You've got these very kind of, I don't know, sugary, sweet-sounding Disney strings playing at the start of the video. But when the song actually gets going, it's pretty goddamn good as far as I'm concerned. I mean, let me know in the comments if you think I've missed anything. But to me, this sounds like the closest that Ihsahn has actually come to writing actual black metal since Ongel, which came out back in 2008. You've got a very spicy riff underpinned by this thick layer of synths. They do a great job of ratcheting up the atmosphere. The drums are blasting. Ihsahn actually sounds more like the screaming demon that I idolized on Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk than the fucking nerd who made a mockery of his legacy for the last 15 years. So, so far, so good. So here's a thought, and this is just my theory. There may be no truth to it whatsoever. We may never know whether there's any truth to it whatsoever. But a couple of months ago, we were speculating on this very segment over the potential of a new Emperor album. And I also spoke to Swartalv from Nocturnal Breed when he was on about whether or not there may be something in the works. Like it was the band that was talking about it, Ihsahn in particular. And the denial of anything felt, or like that deflection of whether anything was going on, felt to me to be very intentional at the time. Like they were kind of showing their cards without showing their cards, if that makes sense. Then out of the blue, there's this announcement of a new Ihsahn record. Like I don't think that there's been any hints that anything is coming for a while. So my thinking is this. Could it be possible that Ihsahn had been working on new material for a potential Emperor record, and then for whatever reason it just never quite came together? You know, same author's got a lot going on in his personal life. Maybe he's just not feeling this kind of music anymore. And then, you know, Ihsahn just decided to cut his losses and release what he had written under his own name. Like, I know there were blast beats, for example, on the previous Ihsahn solo record, but just in terms of like moments of relative heaviness and being a little closer to Ihsahn's roots, maybe, this to me sounds far more so than anything that he's put out for a long time. I mean, maybe I'm just trying to reconcile in my own mind that I'm about to call a track by Ihsahn, whose comments about modern black metal pissed me off so much, top notch. But I think what we heard here is at the very least, verging on sounding top notch. This sounds excellent to me. Really, really good. I'm actually going to go as far as to give it another 60 seconds. If I had to throw any shade at this, it would be at the music video, because the music video is just completely and utterly pointless. If you were watching this on YouTube, let me know if you agree. But it's just, there's just nothing going on in it. It's a guy who wakes up, has breakfast, and apparently goes for a walk and takes the train on his daily commute. And yes, if you live in the UK, your daily commute is the true horror show. But it's, I don't know whether or not it makes for a particularly entertaining music video. Anyway, I want to jump over to Lamb Goat because there's been an interesting article there that I wanted to share with you guys very quickly. So some of you may already have picked up on this story. The headline here reads, Original Typo Negative drummer slams Bloody Kisses anniversary. Peter is rolling in his grave. It says here, in a fiery and unfiltered tirade, Sal Abruscato, the former drummer of Typo Negative and Life of Agony, has unleashed a barrage of accusations and frustrations targeting his former bandmates, the music industry, the specific individuals he believes have wronged him. The rant, captured in a lengthy video live streamed to social media, provides a raw and an unapologetic insight into Abruscato's current state of mind and his grievances with the industry. I'll let you guys hear about 90 seconds of it, just so you can kind of get the vibe of what he's saying. If you can't listen to the whole thing, then Lamb Goat very kindly transcribed the entire rant for you. But you really owe it to yourself to give this a listen, because for reasons I'll explain in just a second.
Interesting 24 hours. Let me explain something. I've got like really big fish to fry right now. So like the last thing I need is like have people send me messages. Hey man, I saw this. I read this. I saw this on Blabbermouth. I'm literally here minding my own business, right? I don't live. I really try. I post about my whatever endeavors of selling merch or something artistically or whatever, right? I'm busy here because we're doing stuff and I hear about this fucking stupid cash grab. And my name is left off of it. So, I know a lot of bands, after a band member passes away, especially, they'll try to continue, right? Static X or Good Morning, Kelly.
Anyway, I'm going to stop there. You can go and listen to the whole thing for yourself. Like I said, it's on the Lamb Goat website. I have to say his ability to speak full pelt for 36 minutes straight is pretty impressive. And I say that as somebody who speaks into the camera into a camera for this podcast. It's not easy to do. And this guy does it without any cuts, without any interruptions. He is absolutely seething. And amongst the highlights, he claims, amongst other things, that there's a conspiracy headed up by Alan Roberts to have him shadow banned from the music industry. He also states that Life of Agony was unable to play in time until he joined the band and saved their careers. And he also suggests on several occasions that maybe an entertainment lawyer should look into his case for shits and giggles, because clearly he doesn't have the money to pay for an actual court case. Now, given the fact that very few of us were actually there and present for any of this, it's hard to know whether, what he's claiming is true or not. To be perfectly honest with you, the main cause of his frustration, for those of you guys that don't know, is the fact that the surviving members of Typo Negative have come out with this, soon-to-be-released graphic novel, I think, about celebrating the 30th anniversary of Bloody Kisses. Sal is pissed because he played drums on that record. Johnny Kelly didn't. And as much as I'm a fan of the Typo Negative guys, especially of Johnny, I've had him on the podcast. You guys know how big a fan I am of him as a drummer, just generally. On the surface, the right thing to do may have been to, at the very least, cut Sal in on a share of the royalties. I think they're limiting the graphic novel to 666. I don't know how much they're selling it for. So I don't imagine, when we say cash grab, I don't think we're talking millions here. But I think the principle, or on principle, Cell should at the very least have been mentioned in the graphic novel, and almost certainly should have. There should be an acknowledgement of his role in the history of the band. But this, my friends, this video is a great example of why stoicism is overlooked and undervalued in particularly Western society, as far as I'm concerned. Because as much as Cell may have a point, that has been lost thanks to this very spectacular public meltdown. In another era, this could have been career-ending. Fortunately for Cell, I think people's memories are pretty short nowadays. But the fact is that when you spend 36 minutes, cussing out every single person in the music industry, calling people the F-bomb, rather than just maybe taking a step back, doing your own celebration of Bloody Kisses, maybe you could have gotten your band. I mean, he's still got a Pale Horse Named Death active as a band, as far as I know. Maybe they could have done a cover of Black Number 1. He could have chosen a path that would have been far more beneficial to him in the long run, rather than the path that he has chosen, which is basically the equivalent of punching yourself in the face repeatedly. But anyway, I thought I would share that with you. Speaking of punching yourself in the face repeatedly, I've got another interesting little nugget to share with you over on Louder Sound. Now, before I get started, I just want to clarify two quick things. One, I don't read Metal Hammer. I haven't done for many, many years, and for good reason. This article is a great example why. Secondly, I don't really care what side of the political aisle you're on, whether you are a communist or a Nazi. If you're an extremist of any kind, you are a low IQ simpleton, as far as I'm concerned, and not somebody that I want to associate with in any way. The article headline reads, and this will help what I just said make a little bit more sense potentially, but it says here, Pantera were one of America's most important metal bands. Now they're little more than Phil Anselmo trying to whitewash his own legacy. We start with the powerful statement. Following his on-stage white power outburst in 2016, Phil Anselmo has resorted to hollow nostalgia to win people back, rather than show evidence of genuine personal growth. We've got a bit of a preamble about how Pantera were incredibly important in the metal scene. They were apparently the soul saviors against nu metal and grunge. And then we jump forward to a day that will live on in infamy. January the 22nd, 2016, the author writes, remains one of the blackest days in modern metal history. Then former Pantera frontman Phil Anselmo deciding to get on stage, throw a Nazi salute and scream, "White power!" was not only a heinous act in its own right, it then bogged the scene down in years of infighting and excuses over what should be a universal stance by now: Nazism is bad. I must say, I don't know why this guy's memory is so selective, but I cannot recall seeing a single comment. I didn't see a single article written. I don't remember seeing a single person in the scene step up and apologize for or make excuses for Phil Anselmo. I actually think a lot of folks, even people that are fans of Pantera or were fans of Phil, and I regard myself as a Pantera fan. I've met Phil once. I thought he was a very nice guy when I met him. He wasn't drunk when I met him, but what I have observed over the many years of being a Pantera fan is that he's not necessarily what you would call a good drunk. He's one of those guys that gets a little liquored up, and if we are being extremely charitable, we could say that his behavior verges on being socially awkward. More realistically, he's a fucking asshole when he gets drunk. And I've heard that from a great many people that have met him outside of industry or wherever else as well. So anyway, I don't think a lot of people were surprised by it, and not just the racism, the stupidity. I think the racism may have surprised a couple of folks, but then again, he has had that reputation for a while. Either way, we go on to learn that, and we'll carry on quoting the article, 7 years later, Anselmo's undergone something of a public rehabilitation. The singer reformed Pantera in 2022, 19 years after their implosion and just 4 after their last surviving founder, drummer Vinnie Paul, passed away to begin a campaign of tours and festival headline sets. Reservations about supporting Anselmo's major league return were gradually drowned out by enormous crowds roaring over, witnessing groove metal gods live once again, albeit with Zakk Wylde and Charlie Benante replacing the deceased Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul respectively. I don't know Zakk Wylde, but I do know a great number of people who know and are very good friends with Charlie Benante, and this to me again, you know, when it comes to this whole Phil Anselmo is still, you know, the head of the clan argument that, you know, people like this guy is busy making. Charlie Benante is the furthest thing from a racist, and every single person I know who's friends with him, they themselves are the furthest thing from racists you will ever come across. So again, I can't imagine that this dude is going to willingly associate himself with somebody who's got a bunch of sketchy beliefs, but I think that's beside the point here. Because what is most critical to the writer of this article is that the broad acceptance of Pantera's comeback would be understandable if Anselmo had spent some of the past 7 years atoning for his actions. Yet he seemingly hasn't. When footage of the frontman's white power outburst started doing the rounds on YouTube, he both refused to apologize and drummed up frivolous excuses. Again, he kind of fails to mention the apologies here. He touches on them, says that you know, they effectively weren't good enough for his to meet his standards. But what he never does is actually give a clear indication of what actions, from his perspective, Phil Anselmo should have taken in order to sufficiently atone. So we're kind of left confused here, because we've had 7 years of Phil Anselmo not behaving like a skinhead, like a far-right white supremacist. He hasn't done anything like this again. As a matter of fact, we had that incident in Bulgaria, I believe it was earlier this year, where he had it out with one of the members of the audience for waving around a white power flag. So from my perspective, his example should show us some degree of contrition, but apparently that's not enough. Because as the writer reminds us, what a noble redemption, right? There have been pockets of people refusing to accept Anselmo in the years since, most notably when Pantera's planned performances in Germany this year were cancelled following pushback. But all this points us to the most likely and chilling possibility. Bookers and fans are re-embracing Anselmo, not because they've seen the error in his ways, but because Pantera have brand power and people want to mindlessly mosh to the riff of a new level. So, like I said, we don't get a single indication here of what we're supposed to do about this. We certainly don't get a single indication of what Phil is meant to do about this. In order to meet with the lofty moral standards over at Metal Hammer Magazine, all we are inundated with is several paragraphs worth of basically whining. Because if all you're doing is standing on your soapbox complaining about something without offering actual solutions, that is exactly what you're doing. And I think we can all agree, no matter what side of the political aisle we find ourselves on, nobody likes a whiner. And on that poignant note, my friend, the news rant is wrapped up for this week. That wraps up episode 205 of Into the Necrosphere. Big thanks to Chris Pervelis of Internal Bleeding for his time. A big thanks to every single member of the Legion that has stuck around until the very end. We're not going to slow things down as I wrap up with a track by the great Pyrexia. And I also wish each and every one of you a fantastic week ahead. Whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next Tuesday.